Oh, trying really hard not to get glare on my glasses. Normally I would have a thing that goes over the camera to help with that. I have no idea where it is, and if I didn't actually accidentally put it somewhere or throw it away even. That's a very likely possibility. Ah, that's frustrating. Okay, well, it is what it is. I'll try not to let it bother me too much. Okay, hi. I know it's been a minute. Please forgive all of the acne on my face. It's part of many things I'll probably be talking about, just because there's a lot to talk about. Thank you for tuning in. If it's afterwards or if it's live, I fully expect low number of folks in, and I'm not going to let that bother me too much. Yeah. I feel like I'm starting over from nothing, which is kind of funny. Because I know it's not true. And I know that there's other people streaming right now that are normally in my audience who might be in other people's streams. This is mostly just yapping because I'm feeling a little insecure right now. I apologize. So, what have I been up to? What have I been doing? It's been a minute. Like I said, I'm actually kind of forgetting how long it's been. I know it's at least been a couple months. I think prior to May might have been the last time that I streamed. I think I do remember it saying streamed 3 months ago on a clip that I made. So at least 3 months since the last time I streamed. And it was also at the beginning of Pride. Was it Pride Month? I want to say it was Pride Month. So that was July, actually. So maybe a month, maybe 3 months at the longest. So that's a lot of time to cover. Hi, Z. Thank you for popping in. I know it was a little unplanned, I want to say. I kind of decided today, after a session with a therapist, to pick up the habit again. Because I have missed being on here, and I've missed reading, and I've missed talking to people, and it feels good, if a little nerve-wracking, to get back into it again. I was just commenting about how it's been a minute and how a lot of things have happened, and I'm gonna go rambling into that now. I'm not wholly sure if I'm going to read today or not. I don't technically have anything planned. I do have a couple I know I could pick back up that were short stories to begin with, so I don't feel super bad about picking them up so long after it's been since the last time I read one. But I wanted to start with updates and discussing a little bit about what's been going on, what's been happening, etc. Some of which you already know, but for anybody else who might be lurking, happy to talk about them a little bit and discuss everything that's been happening. So, to start, it has been a very chaotic couple of months, to put it mildly. I had a job, and I left that job, and I'll talk a little bit about why. I got involved in a online event on a server that just recently announced that is now closing. I have some stuff going on in terms of my living situation that is a little bit complicated and complex, and I have not been playing as many games as I would like to be playing, just in terms of variety. I've kind of gotten into this slump lately, and I haven't really been able to do any sort of streaming with regard to games, mostly because I'm worried that I won't be able to run both at the same time unless I literally close every single thing out that I possibly can, with the hopes that the laptop that I'm using will even be able to run both things simultaneously. I know that I can't run OBS, so a lot of what can be done in terms of audience participation and reaction is kind of limited. And I know that with a lot of people, having a higher production rate is what brings people in and brings people interested in participating and watching all together. I still do have redeems on, and I hope that people will use some of those redeems. A lot of them I know are kind of activity based, and I need to probably revisit those and modify those. Hey Sai, welcome in. I'm so glad to see you here. Okay, so yeah, let's talk about stuff. Let's talk about the job first and foremost. So, I am very low income, and I have had difficulty getting and keeping full-time work since last April, I want to say. So it's been about a year since I've had full-time work, better paying employment in general. This whole time I have been working one job and only one job that gives me about 12 hours a week. And that is definitely not enough to really cover my life expenses and basic needs like food and clothing and proper shelter. As it is right now, housing has been my biggest worry and concern. I currently live in an apartment that is just under $1,900 USD. We've lived here a full year, and we renewed our lease at the end of April, beginning of May, with a couple different expectations and caveats along the way, none of which have really worked out. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. The job that I have tried working didn't last very long. I tried to get a hotel job as a front desk person, and the place that I thought I interviewed well in and gave me a job offer pretty much at the end of my interview, after less than a whole week of work, decided not to keep me for no reason that I know of, and they gave me no reason, and according to the state laws that I currently live in, they don't have to. So that was kind of an injury to my pride. After that, I had been consistently sending in resumes, applications, all of those things as much as I can. And a lot of the jobs that were being offered online were jobs that either were out of my experience range or completely out of my wheelhouse of skills. And the ones that were available and have been available have primarily been things that would challenge my medical schedule and my chronic pain. So one of the things also to take into consideration is that I live in something of a college town, and a lot of the job availability fluxes with that. So when students are not here, a lot of those businesses significantly lower staff and have less business overall. So it really matters getting in at the right time. And with having our lease renewed in May, um, that was at the beginning of summer when a lot of students went back home, and or college students to be more specific. And because of that, there just hasn't been a lot of business, hasn't been a lot of reasons to be hiring people, etc. I also live in an environment that has very cold winters with a lot of snow on the ground. And while it's not that now, with it being the tail end of summer at the beginning of fall, I don't necessarily have to worry about that right now. I previously had a lot of experience as a driver, not necessarily a CDL driver or somebody who drives like a bus, to be more specific, if you don't know what a CDL means. A bus or a long haul vehicle or anything like that. I mostly did like food delivery driving and luggage or package related delivery driving, and did that for a couple of years. And prior to the job I had at the end of my time in the last place that I lived, which I had worked there for 4 years, that was most of my resume, while living in that state specifically. Um, anyway, getting to the point of all of that, because it's so snowy and because I have as little experience as I do driving in the snow and general confidence, I haven't been able to apply to any of those jobs. And the jobs that are available are things like mail delivery, UPS type things, big package deliveries, heavy package deliveries, things that are 50 pounds or more. And also, a lot of the buildings here are on hills or in multi-story buildings. So being able to lift something 50 to 100 pounds or more upstairs, up hills, is not something that really works for my chronic pain, of which I have plenty. So there's that. And food service in general requires a lot of work, standing for long periods of time, moving around quite a lot. I have chronic venous insufficiency in both of my legs, worse in my left side. I have arthritis. I have recently learned that I have bone spurs in my feet, and just it makes doing a lot of those jobs really difficult, especially if they don't offer any sort of accommodations like seating, like being able to sit on a stool or a high-legged chair or anything like that. I did work very briefly when I first got to this city as a cashier at a grocery store, and I had to leave because of situations outside of my control that I needed to participate in. But since I've been back, and I have applied to other grocery stores in that same chain that are local to my area, that are abundantly, like one of the main grocery stores that are even here, I haven't been offered any sort of interview or additional like even availability things. Like I don't even get rejection letters the few times that I have applied. Usually those job opportunities will just expire on the search engine for jobs in my area, that sort of thing. So what does that leave? A limited number of options, and as I said, I've been applying to as much as I can, but they haven't really given me the opportunity, or the interviews didn't go anywhere. I wasn't given the option, I wasn't hired, anything like that. I did choose to do a food service job against all of my reasons, because the job itself was kind of unique. It was a bakery of sorts, like a chain sort of bakery. I won't go into much details because I don't want to dox myself. But we sold pastries, basically pastries on demand sort of situation, and it required no long-term standing. I didn't have to wait at a register until people came in, or even sit at a register until people came in. I was able to sit in the back. I had good sight line to the front door, so when the alert sound came on, I could see that it wasn't like one of the delivery drivers coming back or just somebody dropping off something to, like a different person coming in to sit with a customer who was maybe eating at um, the bar, if you will. Uh, so I didn't have to jump up and down a lot. And there were big periods of time during the day because of the specialty of this place that I didn't have customers at all. So I was able to do things like maybe read if I wanted to read, or do all of my side work really quickly to get it out of the way, so by the end of the night I could just close up and leave and not have to spend an additional hour or two doing all of that. And for all intents and purposes, it was a great job to do that for. The main reason it didn't work out in the end was I had some difficulty with management. I didn't feel respected and treated fairly, and I chose to leave. Another reason for that had to do with the chronic pain issue. I do have previous back injuries. I use a back brace when I need it, and I didn't wear it my first day. Thank you for letting me know, Z. I didn't wear it my first day, and because of that, it kind of set the tone going forward for the next few weeks that I worked there. My back hurt, and I hadn't done that kind of physical activity in close to 7 years. A lot of it required lifting 50-pound boxes of product, moving things in and out of a walk-in freezer. So lifting things up from my waist, sometimes putting them over my head, sometimes having to bend over my body to get things. There were walk-in freezers and refrigerators that I had to bend over and into to get product out. It was causing me a lot of pain. And usually by the end of the night, I was practically limping home. And the final reason was because when I first started the job, I had access to a vehicle. While the job itself is very close to home and very accessible if I had decided to walk, given the fact that I could barely do the job to begin with because of my pain, having to walk home wasn't necessarily something I was excited to do. And by the time I finished my shifts, it was usually very late at night, somewhere between 1 and 3 o'clock in the morning. So I didn't necessarily feel safe walking at night, even with it being in a somewhat decent area and that sort of thing. So it kind of became like this perfect storm of reasons why it wasn't going to work out. The vehicle that I originally had access to after about a week of my working the job broke down. And even after I finished and left the job, was still inoperable until a couple weeks after. And of course, one final thing, my manager was gone for over a week just after I finished training. And I was expected to cover at least half of her shifts. Some of them would close and the next day they would open, and that was the option that I was given. I didn't really have any choice because we were a limited staff of people and not a lot of them were supervisory roles, and I had chosen to apply as a lead rather than as a baker or a delivery driver for obvious reasons. So things changed very quickly, things continued to spiral out, and I ended up leaving because of all of those reasons. So I went from having a paycheck of at least almost 2.5 times what I normally made, right back to the way that I started. So the people who moved in with us, the roommates that moved in with us, lost their trust that we would be able to make our share of the rent and bills, expenses. You get the idea. To speak on that more specifically, my spouse's eldest child and that child's partner were the ones who came to live with us. They came from out of state. and they came with a dog. I didn't learn about the dog until 3 or 5 days prior to their moving, and it is a dog that hasn't been socialized properly and hasn't been trained almost at all. And this breed of dog is a very protective breed. So coming into my own home at the beginning often involved being barked at and being howled at, and it put me in a state of mind where it felt unsafe to be home. The dog was repeatedly made excuses for. Oh, she doesn't bite. Oh, she doesn't hurt people, etc. But I didn't feel confident in that. And being lunged at, even if it's friendly, while also being barked and howled at, didn't give me the impression that she wanted to play nice. Her familiarity with me didn't really improve or change in the time that she's been here. And because of many reasons and excuses and circumstances, her being able to be trained has been very minimal. So it just kept looking like things were not going to work out. I started wondering if I should stay or not. Some of those things became topics of arguing between myself and my spouse. The stress and problems there quickly became arguments on almost a daily basis. We had already been having some struggles in our relationship based on some communication differences and different beliefs, core beliefs, that kind of stuff, for a little while. Prior to us moving to where we currently are, that wasn't as much of a problem, but quickly became more of a problem as time continued on. It isn't for lack of love or care or respect for each other. It just became too many problems stacking up on each other until the weight of it made both of us start to buckle. Because of that, there were at least 3 instances where I was worried our relationship was fully ending, breaking down to the point that it was no longer, what's the word I want to use? It was no longer what we both signed up for. And I was repeatedly devastated by that. It got really, really bad. I had a meltdown, ADHD, possibly autistic. I haven't been fully officially diagnosed, but I'm starting to wonder about that every single time things start to happen, where I'm looking at past behaviors and experiences throughout my life and wondering if maybe those things might apply to me. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. A full and proper meltdown, one that I haven't had in probably close to 15 years. Yes, that is a general clue as to how old I actually am. Still don't want to tell you, still don't want to dox myself, but I can say I remember a time before cell phones. So I had this meltdown, and I don't remember all of the details because I probably dissociated for at least half of it. It was intense. It was a lot. It was very loud. And because of it, and because of some of the things that I said, and maybe some of the things being misinterpreted or misconstrued, my stepchild and their partner were asked to leave. And when asked to leave, they were also inclined to mention that they were already deciding to leave because of everything that was going on. We had just renewed our lease upon their arrival with the idea that the reason we were renewing our lease was because they planned to stay with us. They hadn't gotten on the lease yet. They felt no inclination to stay, and even if they did, breaking the lease would have cost us a type of expense we weren't really prepared to have. That was another reason that we had chosen to renew the lease. So it was just a lot. It very quickly became more than too much for me to handle anymore. And it seemed, and still does seem, to be perfectly honest, like we are in a position which could result in us being unhoused. And if we were evicted, which is a realistic possibility, if we were evicted, it would ruin our account. It would ruin the confidence that a lot of rental places would have in our ability to continue to be reliable lease participants, lease signers. That would mostly mean that we would only really be able to rent from people who are independent homeowners and not part of a rental property management company or something like that. And even then, a lot of these independent rental people will still do background checks and such on possible tenants, and that would show up, and it would reduce our possibility of getting into a rental with even individual homeowners and that sort of thing. Of course, that's arguable if given the opportunity to do that, but that doesn't necessarily mean they feel inclined to even give us that option. So what does that leave exactly? We can potentially get new or additional... let me try that whole sentence again. We could potentially get new roommates, one or multiple roommates, to help us offset it. I could potentially put myself back in a situation where I could work food service or retail service or anything like that that would probably cause me physical harm, even with certain accommodations. I could pick up another part-time job that may or may not pay me enough in addition to the job that I'm currently employed in, and hope that everything is copacetic. The reason I don't mention my spouse working is because of a lot of complicated reasons, most of them medical related, that make them working really difficult also. We are in the process of trying to figure that out. We are in the process of potentially filing for Social Security disability, but that will take a lot of time to process and could take upwards a year or two, even if we started right now. With regard to the roommate situation, because of some of the things that occurred to try and mitigate the cost of our expenses, we had to close out a storage unit and move all of those things into our house. And it was a lot of things. Too many things. It has made occupying a lot of the spaces in our house nigh impossible. It leaves a very small amount of space where being sociable can even happen. We don't have a dining table. a lot of the things we used to be able to have access to, including my computer, which I haven't seen in almost 3 years now, have just been inaccessible to get to move in here because there's just no place for it. So even if we were to get roommates, the amount of time it would take to make our space approachable, appealing for other people to come live with us would take a considerable amount of time and a considerable amount of help. 90 seconds, so I have to wait. Assuming people come back and listen, kind of stuff. Okay, I should keep talking. It has left me feeling really hopeless and fearful. I don't know how we're going to do by the end of this month. I don't know how we are going to do after. If we're going to be better, safer, able to keep things going. Everything feels like it's out of our control. Out of my control. And the stress of that has put significant strain on my marriage. I've been married for what's coming on 10 years. And the person I married, the person that I love, has been with me through some really, really hard times. For me personally, honestly, that's part of the reason we even got together as fast as we did, got married as fast as we did, was because of the amount of things that were going poorly in my life. Thank you, Z. I'm trying really hard not to lose it. They've never been easy. The whole time we've been together, they've never been easy. And anybody who's been in that kind of long-term relationship will say, well, that there's always things that happen, always things that make things hard, make it difficult to manage, especially the longer on it goes. In fact, I had a lot of people, acquaintances as well as friends, who went on to tell me that the 10th year is a challenging year for most people. Thank you. 10 years is difficult. Something happens, something breaks, something compiles to the point where it's unmanageable anymore. But I feel like since the very beginning, it has just always been extra hard for us. And we've been able to endure most of it. And it got actually pretty okay right before we moved. And then the political climate changed to the way it is in the United States, where it didn't feel safe anymore to live in the state we were in, which was primarily a Republican state that does not offer a lot in the ways of equal, equitable human rights. So we moved somewhere we could, with financial backing to do it. Financial backing that we thought would be, in the long run, better for us. And that changed almost immediately. and the circumstances started to collapse, started to break away. We moved out of the place we were living into a place we thought we could afford, and then it didn't work out. It hasn't worked out. So, job's not doing well, housing's not doing well, relationships not doing well, and it made getting on and being happy-go-lucky and cheerful and happy to engage with other people really difficult. And I didn't want to be here and pretend to be someone that I'm not. And I know that that kind of interaction and response with people is something that most don't want to engage in. Even now, I'm worried about that. I'm worried about people maybe coming in, seeing me talking about such serious things, are not going to stick around. They have no reason to. I am a perfect stranger, and I am not giving my best performance, if you will. Because that's the thing about any sort of interaction online with live streaming. You have to be a performer. You have to be personable. You have to give reason for people to want to stick it out and stay. And in a lot of cases, the person that you are acting, performing, pretending to be isn't always very genuine to who you actually are. In a lot of cases, people don't share personal life things that are going on. Again, not wanting to give too much away about themselves or the people that they live with and people that are important. Because online culture can be very damaging and toxic in every single way. I could just as soon have an employer find out my handles and that sort of thing, start to look me up online, find all the stuff about my personal beliefs, my core values, the way I interact with other people, and decide that they don't want to employ me. They might find out personal enough details about me that will give them reason not to believe me to be reliable, or even a overall good fit with other people who work there. Because you have to work with other people. You're not your own boss. You're not your own employee, any of that. And also with just online stuff, assuming you get popular at all, assuming you are lucky enough one day to get viral attention and you build a reliable audience who is invested in you, invested in your life, invested in the interactions you have. That is a very rare thing and often takes a long time to cultivate if it doesn't happen quickly. And in my experience, a lot of the people who start off in your audience reflect you as a person. In which case they may not necessarily have the disposable income, if you will, to help. Not for lack of being wonderful humans, friends that I've made through interacting with community here online, on Twitch, on YouTube, in the gaming space. Wonderful people who I genuinely appreciate and whose relationships with me have become bright spots in some really hard times, and who I am grateful for every single day. Even if we don't talk every single day, even if we don't talk about a whole lot of stuff about us personally, having people like that means a lot to me. I am a person who has grown up moving around a lot and not having a lot of long-term friends. And some of the friendships that I've made online have been long, enduring friendships. Friendships that have passed the year mark. Or, conversely, feel like they should have been a year because of how quickly we've become friends. Excuse me. So where does that leave me now? I still want to do this. I still want to come on here and interact with anybody who wants to join me. I want to continue to read because of how important it is for me to share and bring literacy to other people, to encourage people to read, to encourage people to find books that they love to also read. I've been meaning this whole time to do things like book club type chats where we're all reading the same book, whether or not I'm reading it with them or to them, and we're able to discuss things like the plot and the characters and all of the fun details in between. That's what I went to school for. While I didn't get an MLS, I still went to school with the intention of getting one, and I still consider reading and writing to be incredibly important, and finding ways to show that reading and writing and the arts in general are things that a lot of people take for granted and also maybe don't treat with the same amount of importance and prevalence. Things that people forget. You know, dialogue on a television show is written by somebody, sometimes multiple people. Dialogue in a video game is written by one or more people. Books and other media are written by other people. And the amount of work and time they put into those things is being interacted with less and less as we continue to push forward into a digital age where those things aren't necessarily encouraged. Being able to do something like that is important to me, has always been important to me. Books and libraries were ways for me to learn and be and explore areas that I most likely was never going to be able to access because of my income bracket, because of the time, because of my body. Being able to have all of these different lives that I got to experience, and nonfiction that has shaped me and changed me for the better. Recipes and music and concepts that otherwise would not have been accessible to me because it wasn't encouraged in me as I was growing up and becoming the person that I am today. Books and literature and writing and listening are all so important to me, and I think to my potential audience as well. And I want to keep doing that. I want to keep encouraging that. I want to keep facilitating that. And I hope more people join me on that, and that we continue to grow and learn and experience the world together. Those are all things that I want, which is why I'm here, which is why I want to do this. This is one of the only ways I am able to. And I'm grateful every single day that I have that opportunity. Not everybody even has the privilege and the accessibility to the things that I currently do. And I'm aware of that. I don't know for how much longer I'll have access to most of these things, but I'm going to try for as long as I can. And coming back to it again and again, I want to. So there is all of that. And if you have questions, if you want to commiserate, if you want to learn more things, I encourage you to interact with me. I'm here to do that. I still am small enough, and I may always be small enough that I can. So, I'm not able to continue at this moment in time to read Multiamory, which was the book that I started back during Pride Month. I don't have access to the book right now. I don't have funds to purchase the book, and I don't feel that it would be fair of me to find a less than legal, if you will, copy of the book to read it. These authors, and I'm pretty sure the publishing house itself, are small, and I don't want to take away money that they deserve. And I can't spread awareness about a book that I can't read, that other people might not be able to access either. That's part of what makes this sort of experience really important. It's also one of the reasons that it can be very difficult to continue to do outside of the public domain. I still feel like public domain literature is worth reading, worth talking about. It's still knowledge. It's still past experience. A lot of the stories are still relatable. The characters are still relatable. The lessons that are takeaways from those things are still relatable. So I still want to do that. And a lot of those things are still, ironically enough, still applicable to this day. Some of the things, especially non-fiction books, really are still perfectly usable. And in some cases, these are, especially when it comes to things like skill books, are not even taught anymore, but still should be taught, are things that our educators might not really be able to teach because they don't have access to them, or they don't consider to use them as the basis. An example me and my spouse both refer to often is the lack of home economics that are being taught in the current modern culture. Home economics is such an important thing, and with a generation of young people coming into their first experiences outside of living at home, not having these skills is a detriment to them. They need to know these things. They should know these things. So maybe doing things like that is something worth investigating too. A lot of the activities I can probably show with a little bit of finagling. A lot of them would be things I would also be learning. I'm sorry. My phone is currently shouting at me to take medication, so I haven't had my redeems open. Please forgive me. Give me 1 sec. The app on the phone is so stupid. I'm constantly annoyed with it. Give me just a second. Why am I not... I'm not seeing any redeems. Oh, stand and stretch and hydrate. I'm so sorry. Let me do that real quick. Please forgive me. All right. Hydrating. Just water. Everything fun is upstairs. I didn't plan that far enough ahead. This bottle is loud. I'm sorry about that too. It's funny because I even have something that I could use as a fun hydrate, but I didn't bring it down with me. Drink that water. Hey, sweetheart. Thank you so much for tuning in. All right, big stretch. If you are at home, you should also big stretch. Arms over the head, bend over your knees, whatever you need to do. Oh my goodness. Everything in the world is popping. I know you can't hear it, but that's okay. Maybe next time I can bring the mic a little closer so you can. Oh boy. Okay. Thank you for the redeem. Plural. And forgive me if my screen wiggles a little bit. It's a very poor quality desk. Okay. So some of the skill books, maybe I can do them on stream, especially like fiber work. I do have a lot of tools available to me that I haven't really used, and it would be fun to maybe learn them together. Or at least to show my work, maybe. I also know that the makers and creators on this website are some of the most talented people I've ever seen, and are so incredibly impressive and make it look so easy. But I know if I tried to do them, I would look silly. But that's fine. That's part of the whole entertainer thing, right? So those are things that we can potentially do together. I can't really perform music like I would like to, because I don't have the setup for that, but it's something that I've considered doing in the future. I used to be very active in choir growing up, and I do still consider myself to be a decent enough vocalist that I could pull it off. I do play one or two instruments, although poorly, but maybe I could practice, and that could be a whole thing too. I haven't written original material in a while. I was actively working on a book and was very proud of the work I was doing, although I should have really spent more time doing research outside of just writing the outline, for lack of a better term. That is something we could also do. Actual writing streams, not just reading streams, and maybe I could even read some of my original material. I do have poems that I wrote. I do have short stories that I wrote. I would have to look for them. They might be on my computer that's in storage, but I'm not necessarily opposed to writing prompts and things live, and maybe doing like an ad-lib thing beforehand, putting things up on my Discord that I share with my very dear friend Cozy Plays Live, who, if you're not subscribed to, you should. She's great. The stuff she's putting out is great and has been great for a while. I'm so proud of the work she's done. I've got to be there for pretty much all of it. Maybe not as active as I should be because I have a lot of shit going on at home and in life. But I also know confidently that she's handling it very well by herself and doesn't need me to hold her hand. Support your friends. Support your homies. I've wanted to do co-streams for so long. I had the privilege of having a chat discussion with Neth, the lore keeper, Neth Derath, where I was having probably a really bad day, and I wanted to talk about it and not just type it, and I was given the opportunity to do that, to have a conversation, podcast style, if you will, with his audience and just a bunch of really lovely people who don't always have the time to come into my stream and sit with me, which is fine. They're usually a later crowd, and they're usually in Neff's chat, not really able to dual chat and be in mine also. And Neff is an incredible reader and a incredible conversationalist and has so many wonderful takes on so many things that I agree with. That's why I tune in and participate with his group. I'd love to do that more. There was a period of time where I was discussing with a couple other content creators, specifically Fadelay and Stranger Peace, and Neff, and a couple other people who maybe were interested, but the four of us for sure were down for doing it, doing a one-act play together. I even found one that was kind of doable. I have done voice work in the past. It would be fun to be able to do some of that voice work again. I have emails coming in pretty much daily for voice projects that I could probably use as additional income, but I would definitely have to audition for, and probably against people who are much more talented than me with much better setups than me. So that's something I've always been apprehensive of doing, but it's always worth a try. I think more than anything, that has been something I've had to remind myself over and over the past couple of years being here, that it's important to try. It's always important to try. Myself included, I should try more. I want to try more. I want to try being on here more. I want to try learning with y'all more. I want to try reading more frequently, more often. Multiple books at a time, even if my attention argues with me about it. All of these things. I want to try. I want to try with my marriage. I want to try making more local friends and getting out of my house more, being more active, physically active, doing those things. I actually have been doing physical therapy. That's one of the things that I've been working on this year, is being more physically active, because I've been very sedentary. I've been very depressed. Whether or not it seemed like that, or it was. So being indoors, maybe not eating the best, definitely not being physically active at all. As soon as I started doing physical therapy again and getting in the pool, because I found personally for me that it is low impact, high intensity. Since I started doing that, I lost 13 pounds. And even though I'm about to run out of allowable sessions in this calendar year or fiscal year, whatever the insurance runs off of, I still have access through my insurance, my state insurance, that I'm able to go to this facility. And I can still potentially get bus passes, which are very affordable. We're talking 75 cents to $1.25 based on peak or non-peak, or $3 to do a full day pass. Sometimes it's cheaper to do the not peak just to save a little bit of money. And when you're living hand to mouth, that's really important. I feel like I have a lot of life experience that maybe younger people don't have, and maybe are looking for somebody who is approachable, that they can talk to about these things. I can hardly call myself a life coach. I'm not nearly as cheerful. I do not have enough catchphrases in my back pocket for it. But I am always happy to talk about things with everybody and anybody who wants to give me a few minutes of their time. As you can see, based on the clock and the side, I am a yapper, and I have a lot of things to say about a lot of things. Hopefully, worthwhile things to listen to and engage in. What else do I want to say? I've been super conscientious on my appearance lately. I have been breaking out really bad, and part of the reason that I'm breaking out really bad has to do with the fact that I was doing hormone replacement therapy for a little while. I wasn't necessarily looking to go from female presenting to masculine presenting, or feminine to masculine. I don't consider myself feminine at all. So maybe female to male presentation. Whatever, semantics, doesn't matter. While I had been working at a prior job, when I first got here, I met another non-binary person, a customer, if you will, who came in, and they were a lot more ambiguous looking because they had done hormone replacement therapy, and they kind of found their maintenance dose and just kept it going and looked great and were so confident and happy. And I considered the possibility that maybe I could give it a shot and see what happened, see how I felt about it, see if the changes were things that could make me more confident in myself. The likelihood of me having to correct people every time they saw me because that's a big thing as a trans person of any type, but me specifically as a non-binary person. People look at me and they make assumptions, and it is incredibly, I don't want to say degrading, but demoralizing is probably a better word for it. Thank you, Cozy. It can be demoralizing to go outside and the public, going to the grocery store, getting gas at the service station, going to the library, and having people look at me and assume I'm female, and use miss or ma'am because they're trying to be polite, because that's the culture that the American populace likes to pretend they have. I know they're being polite. I know they're being sincere and kind, and that they're not trying to hurt my feelings or hurt me in general. Especially where I'm at, people here are genuinely very kind. But it's still demoralizing to go out in public and be perceived at all. But definitely not as my presentation. And I can try to change my appearance fashion-wise to make it a little harder, but I have a very large chest. That has been a thing I've had since puberty started. So people see that and they're like, oh, that's obviously a woman. No question. I could try and layer myself, but I don't know that there's enough layers to hide it and still be comfortable every single day going out. And it's also money that I don't necessarily have. Even if I bought things thrift, I probably wouldn't really be able to be perfectly comfortable with what I was wearing. So it's made it really difficult to want to go outside and interact with people in general. So thank you for sticking around after the ads. I know they're only a minute or 90 seconds at most. I appreciate it. I've been talking about presentation for anything that you might have missed. So going out and being presented the way that I am, demoralizing, hard to live with, not a lot of funds to fix that. So hormone replacement therapy, that was the whole idea. Maybe if I looked a little bit more blended or a little bit further away from feminine, maybe that would help me feel better. Maybe that would make things easier for me. People looking at me and assuming, oh, I'm not sure. Maybe I should ask. Even admittedly, if I had been misgendered masculine, I feel like that would have been kind of a compliment. I would still have to correct them, obviously, but the fact that they would look at me and not really be sure was something that appeals to me. I also know that it's still not a very common thing for people, so they don't try to do neutral pronouns, they, them. A lot of people who want to get into the semantics of the English language will say, oh, they, them is not a pronoun. But the thing is we've been using they, them as pronouns for as long as English has been available. You can find references that go back a very, very long time. Usually in reference to not knowing if the person is masculine or feminine, or maybe even speaking about a group of people. Like, I like to pretend when people say stuff like that to me, well, I'm actually a collection of bees or birds or, 3 children in a trench coat, that kind of shit, just because it's, slightly sarcastic, definitely playful, nothing meant to be hurtful or harmful or to make another person doubt themselves and their competency. But just to push back a little bit on perception and language in general. Up until very recently, when I spoke about my spouse, I used spouse. I did not use husband or wife. I used spouse. When I referenced them, I used they, them pronouns, even though my spouse's previous pronouns were he, him. My spouse was perfectly fine and content and encouraging of that. And people would still make assumptions. because again, they look at me, they see me as female, they look at our current culture being very patriarchal, and they assume that the person that I've married is a man and not a woman. Things that people don't want to assume because they think it's a kindness, but is actually a little bit prejudice and something I want to push back. If you can hear the plane outside, I'm very sorry. If you can hear the footsteps above, I'm very sorry. If you can hear like noises outside, I'm very sorry. I need to keep the window open, otherwise I can't breathe. There's poor air circulation. Regardless, I'm getting off topic. I started the hormone replacement therapy with the intention of looking more blended, being perceived less feminine. And I didn't realize while taking it how much anxiety and concern about what I might look like in the future would be until it started happening, until I started showing some changes. I started to have this extreme anxiety that I would look like my male parent. The people who know me very well know how upsetting that is. And I will give you a short blurb of a reason as to why. I came from an abusive household, maybe not nearly as physical or even sexual as some people's lives have been. And I am fortunate that I never had it as bad as it could have been. But just because you can't see the physical scars or the physical harm doesn't necessarily mean it isn't happening. In a lot of cases, it's not something that is easily seen because people who do that kind of abuse tend to make sure it can't be seen by the naked eye. Maybe it's hideable by clothing. Or it's purely psychological or purely verbal, which definitely cannot be seen by the eye, but is there. And the longer you know a person, you will start to see the signs as to why. When I was a younger person, up until a certain age, I was a very different person than who I am now. I was a lot more happy-go-lucky. I was a lot more bubbly. I was a lot more excitable. A lot of those things changed as I grew older, and the environment that I grew up in started to change with it. I became more feminine presenting. A lot of the roles that came with being coded female started to crop up. A lot of those things directly conflicted with what was actually happening in my own home. Some very specific things in terms of choices happened, which made things escalate in a way that I never saw coming. My parents' marriage was very toxic and aggressive and poor examples of what a loving, supporting, encouraging set of parents could look like. I was neglected. I was ignored in some cases, and I definitely was an outcast because a lot of the choices that my family did encourage and show and participate in were things that I knew inherently were wrong or hurtful or harmful, and I didn't want to be involved. And I felt in a lot of ways excluded overall because of those choices that I made, even as a younger person. So specifically, my male parent was the most toxic of all in my young eyes, and I was also told repeatedly growing up by perfect strangers, people who I barely knew, that I looked just like my dad. And I hated that. I hated that in huge, huge ways. I feel like in comparison to my mother, because the fact that she was more slender, that people said that because my father was heavy. He was not morbidly obese, but he was definitely a larger man. And I felt like because I was also a larger child, that was one of the reasons why people kept saying we looked so much alike, because I was heavy. So people were making assumptions about me, not just my gender presentation, but also my health, my activity. They didn't know why I looked that way, especially considering that my sister, my younger sister, resembled my mother. She was also slender. She had a different dice roll than me when it came to certain physical attributes on the face and in the body language that more resembled my mother. So I hated that. I passionately hated being compared to and correlated with my male parent. I choose those words very intentionally. And my male parent also was not an active participant in my childhood, in my raising. The man did the very bare minimum to keep appearances. And I wouldn't say, under any circumstances, that having a male parent in a dual parent household is necessary, required, important enough. Like, I don't personally feel like I lacked any sort of life experience or education by having a male parent versus a second female parent versus only a grandparent or a other relative be the one that was the main person involved in my raising, my custodian, for lack of a better term, was the most physically present, but was the most emotionally, mentally, physically, psychologically unpresent. Versus my mother, who had 2 to 3 jobs my whole life and wasn't able to be there for a lot of things that I felt it were necessary for her to be there for. And because of the dynamic my parents had, she was still forced to produce these very, quote, traditional, quote, patriarchal roles. And she was a very stubborn, headstrong woman who didn't like these things and constantly pushed back against them, and they fought more often than not. It made remembering positive things very difficult the older I got. I got further and further away from the few positive things that did happen, so that I look back at my childhood and I just feel so much negativity and unhappiness and neglect and abandonment. And it made me the person I am in that regard. I spent a lot of time feeling super avoidant of having relationship with men who were not queer in some way, and definitely not men who wanted to be with somebody who looked like me, based on societal standards of what a woman should behave like, a female coded person should behave, all of these things. I didn't want those for myself. So when I started hormone replacement therapy, because this is all related to that, when I started hormone replacement therapy, my biggest fear was looking more like my male parent, more than I already looked like. And it didn't matter that I was in a place in my life where I very rarely posted pictures or even talked about my family. It didn't matter that these people never were exposed to this man or anything about him. And like I said, I didn't talk about it much because I just didn't want to. I definitely mentioned how much I did not care for him, how I thought he was a horrible man, is a horrible man, is not nearly as important or interesting as he believes himself to be. You can hear it in my tone. And I still don't want to spend too much time talking about him because it takes away from the message. I didn't want to be that. I didn't want to look like that. I didn't want to worry about that. I knew strangers would never know what I looked like in comparison with my male parent, but I would. I would look into the mirror and I would see that. And the idea horrified me. Genuinely horrified me. I could not stand it, and I didn't realize it was something that would become such a strong feeling as I worried about taking hormones and changing. I didn't realize it until I started the little micro changes that came with the hormone replacement therapy. And the thing is, even with testosterone taken out of the equation, I am at an age where menopause is a thing that happens to people that if it hasn't already started, it would have started by now. I was already going to start having hormone differences in my body that would have potentially started to masculinize me. So I was kind of encouraging it in a way with the additional hormone replacement therapy. And as soon as I started having the dysphoria directly attached to that, I wanted to stop. And I did stop. I talked with my gender affirming care provider, and we discussed how maybe it was important to stop, at least until I was maybe in a better place to do it. Because it's never too late to start hormone replacement therapy. If you are a person who is queer, it doesn't matter if you are 15 or 50. If you feel like hormone replacement therapy will help you, it can and it will. And it doesn't matter that you've grown up physically enough. People who are older than me have definitely started a hormone replacement later than me, are able to achieve gender euphoria by using hormone replacement therapy. But I, in my present self, knew I would not. So I stopped. Of course, I'm lucky that enough of my body hasn't changed that I don't necessarily have to worry about that. It started to change. I started to notice things that I wasn't super excited about. That was another reason why I stopped. I have facial hair that you can't necessarily see on camera, but I sure can. When I get close enough to the mirror, it is not invisible. My eyebrows, which is something I used to comment about in most of the videos that I posted, my eyebrows are darker. They did not used to be this dark. Facial hair happening. Thicker hair in my let's call them sexual. There's another word for it, but I forget what it is. Those places was getting darker, was getting thicker, was getting fuller, and as soon as I noticed that, I freaked the hell out. And that was like, I'm done. So, while it's true that I've stopped the hormone therapy, it has done numbers to my physical body. That's part of the reason that I'm breaking out as bad as I am. And again, if it was just menopause, this is something that happens to menopausal people. It was going to happen regardless. And I previously had very clear skin. I would have a breakout every so often, and it was always annoying, and I always felt like everybody was looking at it. And I know I am hardly the kind of person who should complain about bad acne. I've seen people who have it so much worse than me, who have been deeply affected by their appearance and their presentation, by the way their acne would break out so bad. But the fact that I didn't previously have it, and then now I suddenly do, it's one of those things where I get up and I look at myself in the mirror and I hate what I see. So I'm fighting it as much as I can as often as I can. I'm washing my face twice a day now. I'm using a couple different products to try and minimize it. It has helped a little, but it's still happening. So looking at myself, even in the camera right now, is making me so self-conscious. And I thought about doing a PNG situation, but I don't have good access to things, and I would feel really uncomfortable asking someone to do something that deserved payment and not being able to pay them. And there's other ways around it by using like generators and other types of things. And I do have a couple that I could potentially use, but because I'm not using the software that I normally would use, I don't know that it would work the same way. There is a alternative through the thing that I'm currently using, but it looks like my little icon with little flickies around it to show that I'm speaking. I don't know how many people would be interested in tuning in to me yapping, just seeing that. There's a lot of little things. And I had to fight with myself a little bit just to get started again. And I'm still nervous about it. I had to sit and do breathing exercises before the 5-minute warning that I'm about to start streaming. As it's on, I'm just sitting here because it doesn't have like a visual timer counting down or anything. It just says starting in 5 minutes. So I'm sitting here with my hand on my chest, forcing myself to take slow breaths, forcing myself by self-talk saying, it's okay. Everything's going to be fine. You don't have to worry about people and their opinions. If it's really bothersome, you can kick them out. You can ban them. You don't have to worry about the fact that you might not have a physical moderator in the room making sure that people are behaving, hoping that I wouldn't get raided, hoping that I wouldn't bring the wrong kind of audience into my space and not be mentally prepared for it. These are things that are in the back of my head all the time because it's like, okay, am I even confident enough to do this if something like that were to happen? 10, 15 years ago, I don't know if I could have, to be perfectly honest. I don't have thick skin, and it took me a while to get to a place where I could be. I think part of the reason now is that I treat my insecure self like a different person that I have to take care of and protect, and remind myself that that person is worth protecting, and then having to remind myself that that person is still me. If that's the separation I have to do to feel protective of myself, it's great training wheels. And I recommend it for anybody who might be struggling with that. Treat your insecure self, your inner child, whatever you call it, like a person worth protecting. Give them a different name. Remind them every single day that they are important and they are worthy of love and being treated well. But even then, I was worried that maybe I wouldn't be able to protect that person very well, considering my current mindset and all of the worries attached to it. But I told myself to do it anyway, because it's important to try. Just like I said at the very beginning of all of this, it's so important to try. And it's also okay if it doesn't work out. I might decide after this one that I'm really done, that I really can't do this anymore, that I'm not able to keep schedule and have enough people be interested in coming in even if I don't have a schedule, that it's still worth trying, just to say that I accomplished the one thing. And I think that's important to remember. It's something that I've been talking about in therapy. It's something that I've been worried about for as long as I can think of. It's why I worried for the longest time getting into the job market and trying to convince people that I was worth, quote unquote, worth giving a chance, giving an opportunity. I always was worried people would look at my resume and me and decide, oh, I don't have enough. I don't have enough. I don't have long-term experience. The long-term experience that I do have has been a couple years between then and now. It doesn't take away from the fact that I have it. I went to school for 6 years, not just 4 years. I needed that much remedial work just to get to a point where I could be a bachelor's degree holder. And just because people like to say and think that my degree doesn't have the same merit or importance as somebody who's in the sciences or in the technical online spaces, like, I still did it. It is still important. It is still valuable. It still shows that I am reliable and capable and able to do a lot of things, damn it. But I also know that I am not the only person who is currently struggling with that. A lot of the people in my generation are finding that they can't get jobs that aren't minimum wage jobs, and we will talk about minimum wage another time, but these people are unable to afford being alive, being housed, having food in their mouths, having clothes on their backs, are not able to survive even with these degrees that we were told would be enough to get us in the door. That's just my generation. Younger people are having just as worse of a time because they have self-worth. They value themselves. They won't put up with the same kind of shit that people my age might put up with, because they know how important it is for their mental health and their overall sense of well-being to not put up with that kind of shit and behavior. And the people my age or older are not giving them the respect that they deserve. And in a lot of cases, they don't even have the skills necessary to do a lot of the jobs they were able to do. And then there are others who have multiple degrees. I only have 1 degree. I only speak English. These people are so much more well versed in the world and in all of the uniqueness that comes with it, and they're not being given jobs either. It just fucking sucks out there right now. Everybody is fucking struggling. Housing lists are wait lists are miles long. People, like, funding is being cut for a lot of social services like food stamps, because the people in charge are taking away those essential needs because they can, because it's saving money. For fucking who? We live in late stage capitalism with people who care less and less about other human beings. It is sickening. It is disheartening, not just for me, but for everybody outside of me. My friends, my colleagues, we are all fucking struggling, and it is so hard to keep going. But it is important to try. You may only be one person. You may only think of yourself as this is me and these are my problems and nobody gives a shit. If you get enough people together, you are not just one person. And do not devalue yourself for the one person that you are. You are capable. You have possibilities available to you. It is so important to remember that, to value yourself, to not let other people and their opinions necessarily reflect on you and your ability to choose and your ability to decide and your ability to try. Never, ever, ever tell yourself that. I have had friends recently who have suffered tremendous loss. I feel so guilty that I can't be more than a voice on the other side of a long string of numbers and electricity to be able to communicate with them and tell them how important they are, to give them space to grieve and to mourn. I feel so guilty that I can only do that. And then I have to remind myself that at least I can do that. And they deserve that and more. I might not be able to do things financially to help, but that doesn't take value away from me, or value away from friends who can only do the same for me, because I have also suffered tremendously in the past 2 years in ways that ache and hurt. And when the grief hits me, because that is so important to mention, grief is not linear. It comes and goes in waves. It comes and goes in intensity. But once you've experienced grief, it is always with you. I would say that grief is the loss of innocence in that way. It is okay to grieve. It is okay to be present for other people to grieve. It is okay to have to sit with these really hard, really negative, connotated emotions. It helps us build resiliency and the ability to be compassionate and kind to each other, to one another, to animals, and humans are animals, to our environment, to the future generations of creatures that will be here way after we're gone. Grief helps us be good people. And I remind myself that I still have value enough to be present for people who are experiencing grief. Even if handling grief myself is still really hard. I think it's always going to be hard. And I want so badly to be there, physically there, because I've spent so much time in my life being alone and just wishing I had somebody to hold my hand and be there for me. But again, I had the privilege of being able to access computers and be online and have a phone to call people and still have access to people who loved me. And I think it's so important. To reach out to people, even if it's only one time a year, even if it's multiple times in a single day. It's those connections that can help us remember why we're here, even though maybe we didn't have much in the way of a choice. We continue to choose to be here. And we continue to have people remind us, thank you for coming back from the ads and sticking around. I appreciate you. These connections that we have to each other are the reason to keep going, even if they're long distance, especially if they're long distance. And it shouldn't matter if you spoke with them yesterday or if you haven't spoken to them in a year. The real ones, it won't matter. And I think that's something that you should maybe gauge your connections with people by. If you're able to reach out after a month or longer of no contact, if they aren't waiting for you on the other side with open arms and an ear to listen and a voice to share happiness and sorrow and commiseration and kindness with, then they were never really good people to be with at all. And if there wasn't equal, equitable give and take, if they were only using you and your ability to be a good listener, if it was one-sided in any way, it was also not good. I'll just say it that sincerely. The real ones will stick around no matter what. The real ones will be there for you, with you, without judgment, no matter what. And I'm so privileged that I have enough of those that I can reach out and feel that way. It isn't superficial. And I'm also privileged that I can say I've known people from all walks of life. I think that's also important, to expose yourself to as much difference as possible and to learn that even despite all of those differences, we are all the same. We really, truly are. What else? What else is there? I'm trying to think if there's anything exciting or interesting to necessarily report about me that I haven't talked about in this last hour and a half. I did have an interview recently. It's for a position that I've never really considered as an option for myself. And during the interview, talking with the person on the other line, I found myself listing all of these life experiences and things that I've done, and finding that I actually have a lot more experience relating to the field than I gave myself credit for. Not only that, but I spoke well and I engaged, and after a few minutes of being so nervous and anxious, I spoke with a certain amount of confidence that gave the person interviewing me a lot of positive things to say. She sounded thrilled to speak with me. She gave me the impression that I was worth hiring on the spot if it was only up to her to make that decision. I have another interview coming up this coming week, and while the position isn't necessarily a full-time one, it will add to my current hours by more than half, and it will add to my current wages by at least $2 to $3, at least. So if I were to quit the first job, I would still be making more better with only this job and still have the opportunity to potentially seek additional employment. Not only that, but based on what I know about the position, I feel like it will enrich me to be there, and that I will enrich people by participating in those things. I know that's very vague. It's something of a caregiver role, which is also something that I've always been a little anxious about. Based on my life experience, I didn't necessarily feel super confident that I could be anybody's caretaker. I'm barely able to take care of myself. But I think this is an opportunity to try. If it doesn't work out, it's just another long list of additional things to add that didn't quite work out. And I have to talk to myself about that too. I have to remind myself every day that just because it didn't work out doesn't mean I can't learn from it. Doesn't mean that it wasn't worth trying. It doesn't mean that the experience was altogether negative. It just didn't work out. And that happens to everyone, not just me. And if I feel like I lost time, I lost opportunity, I lost energy, I lost waking hours, things I could have been doing that I would have liked more, it doesn't matter. It's past. I can't take that time back and really thinking about it in a way that it continues to harm me after the fact. Is it really helping me? Is it really serving me? Is it really doing anything positive for me? I feel like that is a lesson that took me this long to learn. And I feel like it's a lesson that we could all learn from. Oh my gosh, my medication reminders keep happening. I don't even know. That's not true. Hang on. Hey, everybody who's listening, if you're still listening, if you are able to hear me now. If you haven't taken it yet, take your medications. If you're anything like me, your medications are not simply take them at night. Some of them are take in the middle of the day. Some of them are take with food. So here's another reminder. When was the last time you ate something? Make sure to have a snack if you need a snack. When was the last time you had something to drink? Make sure that you have a drink. Make sure that it is a hydrating drink. I've had to remind myself more than once after some exposure to certain content creators that there are a lot more listed on hydrating drinks than I originally thought. It is embarrassing to admit that I am this old and I did not take into consideration what those things were. I let myself be told and convinced that those things actually weren't hydrating, that maybe they weren't even helpful for you. take a snack break. Take your meds. Drink some water. Take a little stretch if you can. And, at the risk of sounding like every other person online, make sure to touch grass every so often. I promise it's actually good for you. Unless you live underwater, in which case, don't do those things. I mean, don't touch grass. You can still take your meds and have a snack and do a stretch. Of course, do it safely. Maybe you're in a place where it's not super safe to do a lot of those things. I think you should still try and have a snack and have some water. If you're in a place where you can't have either of those things, I am worried about you. Please take better care of yourself. So now I need to tell my app that I've taken all of those medications so it doesn't continue to yell at me. Give me a second to do that. And if you're curious what the app is, I'm not sponsored, by the way. It is called Pillio. It is spelled Pillio. It is definitely an app for Android. I don't know whether or not it is available on Apple, but I can guarantee you that you'll be able to find something similar. If you have ADHD or a terrible ability to not keep routines, it is a insistent app that helps you remember to do those things. It reminds you to take those things. If you put in the right kind of instruction, it tells you that you need to take it with a drink, or you need to eat something with it. It reminds you to take it at certain times of day with certain intervals, etc. And make sure to update your dosage to help you keep track of when things change. My daily use of the app is to make sure that I'm drinking enough water. Spoiler alert, I never am. To check my mood so that I'm able to take track of where I've been what I've been feeling, how often and when. Track my sleep, because I have sleep apnea, specifically hypopnea, which means that I take shallow breaths. I don't take full breaths, so I'm not getting enough overall oxygen in my body when I sleep. And I wasn't able to have deep enough sleep until I started using a BiPAP, which is a little stronger than a CPAP because of the way that I breathe when I'm asleep. It's not just for people who snore, but it is for people who don't have enough oxygen in their body that comes from breathing. And if you have any concern about your sleepiness when you wake up every day, you should maybe check into that if you can. If you're lucky enough to have insurance at all. If you're lucky enough to be in a place where you have a roof over your head. If you're not watching this while having those things, I am a little surprised, but I'm super proud of you for trying. And it reminds me to take them with insistence. That's one of the fun things about this app. It's got a really great little avatar face. It starts off very happy, and the longer you wait to take your meds, it starts to look more mad, which is funny. It's something that makes me laugh. And you can set the insistence intensity as far as you can't open or operate your phone until you use your app to take your medication. It has a happy little song that it plays while you're taking the medication. I usually just mark it taken. And I know some people will say, well, I could just mark it taken even though I haven't taken it, in which case you need the app more than I do. And you also need somebody to make sure that you're taking those things, which might mean that you need something more than just an app. So consider looking at it. Again, not sponsored, but I have been using it. It has been very helpful. I definitely feel more regulated than I previously was just taking the medication. That being said, I still have bad days. I had one day specifically where I took my night meds when I should have taken my day meds. And let me tell you, that was a really rough couple of days. Because a lot of my night meds are sedative, because otherwise I wouldn't sleep safely and comfortably. Another app that I've been using is called Finch. Finch is again, not sponsored, Finch is a self-care app that gives you a little buddy who can help you treat it with kindness and encourage you and support you as you go through your self-care routines. A lot of that is based on accountability. You're not technically supposed to use it by yourself, but even if you were to use it by yourself, your little buddy is your accountability partner. And it comes with cute cosmetics and a fun little adventure style thing that it does. And the best part about it with the accountability is that you're able to befriend other people who can then become your activity buddies. Even if it's just to encourage you to do it, it gives you the opportunity to have someone be able to encourage you on any number, as low as one, as many as you can, with that person. And to sometimes share those things with you. So not only are you providing them with encouragement, but in some cases, you're also doing the same task. And that's lovely. I think I have 3, 5, 8 people. So 16 people in total, because I have actually 17 people, but no, it's 16. I'm terrible at math if you couldn't tell. 16 people, accountability buddies, who are there that I can encourage, that can encourage me. And I think a very important thing about this app, it is not AI generated. It is just regular computer generated by human people doing those things. The app was made by a lovely development team. All of the things that are in the app were created not from assets, to my understanding. Everything was created by hand or digitally by hand, either way you want to look at it. You're able to make your little bird, because it's a finch, that's the whole point of it being named that. You're able to make your little bird very customizable, little outfits, different colors, etc. You get to raise it from babyhood, toddler age, all the way up to an adult. And there's constantly updated outfits and I should say cosmetics, because that's what they are, cosmetics, be it furniture or physical things that you can put on your little guy, like hats and a cape and little objects that you can use. I'm going to show you mine so that you can get an idea. Hopefully it's not, well, no, I'm just going to show it on the screen. I apologize if the quality isn't super good. I'll try and make it as good as I can make it. Just bear with me 1 second while I do. It has a little affirming friend at the, oh, come on. Affirmations at the beginning. Every single time that you check in. My little guy is named Boba, because I love tea, and I thought it was appropriate. Somebody gifted me a boba tea, one of my accountability, because that's another thing you can do. You can gift each other things. My accountability buddy sent me a boba tea drink for my little guy to hold, which you can see here. This is what my little buddy looks like. I've been doing this for 24 days. I had done it once before. A couple years ago, a friend of mine also suggested that I give it a try. Here's one of my accountability partners who sent me a message last night to wish me good, pleasant dreams. That's what their little buddy looks like. I can also have them join me in my journey, like for the journey of the day. I can send people good wishes, hugs, encouragement. I can tell them how much I like their outfit or their birdhouse, like the decorations they've chosen. There is paid attributes that can give you more cosmetics, or that's such a thing to support the development team and continue to give them the opportunity to continue to add new things, that sort of stuff. I think it's really wonderful. And let me get to the part where I can show you what my little birdhouse looks like real quick. Bear with me one moment. Come on, let me see it. Oh, well, here we go. So this is what my little birdhouse looks like currently. Come on, camera. Oh boy, come on. Oh, there we go. Finally. That's what my little birdhouse currently looks like with my little guy in it. And currently it's adorable. There it goes. I will probably continue to add cosmetics that become available, and they're rotating. There's like a set number that you can always get, but the regular ones are pretty rotating, and I really love that. Overall, it's just really lovely, and I really recommend it. Even if it's silly things like remembering to get out of bed every morning and brush your teeth and wash your face, things I'm not super great at or haven't been previously that great at until I started using this app. But also things like, expressing gratitude and taking times to breathe and listening to happy sounds like waterscapes and stuff like that to remind you to accept yourself as you currently are, to go to bed at the same time every night, because those types of routines are really important for your overall health. To recommend doing movement, to taking care of yourself, the little bird inside of you, and having an example of that. One of the things that I put on it was to drink more tea. And not just because tea is actually a really wonderful way of taking medicine, especially if you're doing like herbal teas, but even black tea and green tea have been proven to be beneficial to overall health. But the act of drinking tea is very intentional, and you can make it even more intentional by adding things like gratitude and meditation, and going through the motions itself is kind of a meditative act. It's a great thing, and it gives me a lot of joy just because I love drinking it. I love tea in general. I could talk about tea for hours given the opportunity. The opportunity, if you will. And I've made a couple really good friends over the course of my life that are also avid tea drinkers. And one person back home where I'm from in the Pacific Northwest who is a tea crafter. Like, she blends and she owns a tea shop, which has gone through some pretty hard times at a few different moments over the time that it's been open. She sells those teas. I love her. Her name is Friday Afternoon. If you have an opportunity to buy some of her products, you absolutely should, and I recommend them wholeheartedly. I love her. She does occasionally stream too, so Friday Tea or Friday Afternoon, specifically a tea seller. Maybe one of these days I'll order some of her tea again and drink it on camera, make sure it's a new one that I haven't tried in a while or haven't had at all, and give you my opinions. At one point, one of my planned activities was called Tea and Piffle, which has, the word itself has a lot of meaning to me, but if you don't know what the meaning is, piffle means frivolity, means nonsense, means act of absurdity, if you will. And it was a preferred term that I used when I was around younger people when I wanted to say fuck. Oh, fuck. Oh, piffle. That's what I said. And it has that same verbal quality to it that can be said playfully and forcefully and with tone and quality. That's why I use it. So if you got anything out of my stream today, piffle should be one of the most important things. Tea and Piffle, which was going to be me drinking tea and just talking, like shooting the shit, talking about whatever felt like talking about, kind of like today. I just don't have tea with me today. In addition to gaming, in addition to reading, in addition to learning things together, practicing mindfulness and living together. I want that kind of community. I want to be held accountable. Casey, thank you for coming in. I appreciate you for stopping in. Being accountable together, enjoying each other's company and time. I genuinely love that. I love that Twitch provided that opportunity to me. I love that I get to exist in a time where something like that has been created and cultivated and nurtured, even though it's attached to Amazon. which I fucking hate for a lot of reasons. Specifically because I was a Pacific Northwest person and because Amazon did a lot of development in my area that took away land that could have been used for housing, land from the native population that could have been utilized much more practically and usefully, took away jobs from people, businesses from people, independent, you know, owners, mom and pop shops, for lack of a better term for it. I know there's a better one, but I'm struggling to find what it is. Small business owners. There we go. Took away those things from people because they are, and they brought their terribleness with you. They would argue, "Oh, we gave jobs, we gave better pay." I disagree. Their overall quality of life. If you don't know anything about Amazon, first of all, are you under a rock? And secondly, here I am telling you about it. They treat their employees like absolute shit, all of them, from the lowliest of delivery people to the upper crust that aren't quite in the CEO area. I am 100% behind you, Casey. It does. It fucking sucks. Businesses that I used to love, restaurants and independent sellers of products and stuff, were put out of business because of Amazon. This platform is run by Amazon. I hate that. And even at the same time, if it wasn't for some silly man in his silly house with his silly friend and family members who were able to financially back them, as much as I fucking hate that, if it wasn't for that silly man and that silly idea, plus he is a absolute shit man, but that's a different conversation entirely. If that hadn't happened, I wouldn't have been able to do this. Same thing with Facebook. I fucking hate Facebook. I hate other platforms like Facebook. It's not the act of buying the land, it's how they treat the people in the land and the plans that the people had for their own land. 100% with you. 100% with you. If it wasn't for things like Facebook, I wouldn't have been able to keep contact with some friends of mine. I wouldn't have been able to find my spouse. We hadn't seen or talked to each other in close to 18 years. And if it wasn't for Facebook, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to reconnect with my spouse. If it wasn't for fucking eHarmony, my spouse maybe never would have gotten the courage to try and talk to me to begin with after so many years apart and lives changing, all of that shit. If it wasn't for fucking AOL Instant Messenger and AOL as general, I wouldn't have been able to connect with new people that I would not have ever had a chance to meet. Like I said before, I am pre-cell phones. So technology, like a fucking cell phone, did not exist when I was a young person. If you wanted to keep contact with people, you had to write them fucking letters. You had to have the money to be able to call them on the phone because national calling was just not a thing. It was state calling only. Scotland hates Facebook so much we made up a new term for it. Puss Jotter. Casey, I hope I said it right. That is terrible. Technology has made it so incredibly possible for me to be able to communicate with and connect with people that I would not have otherwise had the opportunity to do. Television shows wouldn't exist if it wasn't for people who wrote and acted, and the fact that TV shows like that existed at all. I might not have met some of the friends that I made, or literature that I previously used to love, written by really horrible fucking people. Puss as in this puss that comes to a puss jotter. Thank you for the clarification. If it wasn't for terrible media, I might not have met some of the people that I've met. I might not have expanded my horizons the way that I have. If I hadn't gone to school, I might not have been exposed to some of the ideas that I have today. Learning, in my experience, has been nothing, jotter like a school book. It's a perfect analogy. Puss because it's disgusting and comes out of your face. Jotter because it's like hanging out around with really toxic fucking people that you maybe went to school with who haven't grown. Ugh. And family members who have really shit opinions about things that disagree with you. It's like having the family, like the annual family dinner with like a family reunion dinner where you have people who have no idea who the fuck you are, but they come to the dinner because it's an obligation, and they say a bunch of shit that's just not current or active or important enough to fucking care about to speak with. That's Facebook. That's Facebook, isn't it? But again, if it wasn't for technology and learning, I would not have become the person I am and be able to interact with the people that I do. And I'm, as much as a lot of it I hate, passionately hate, I am grateful for it. And the thing about passionately hating something is that it's generally because it is in direct opposition to something that you love. Good! I will happily join you. I will happily add you as soon as possible. And anybody who has Finch, if you join the fucking Facebook, if you join the Discord, ! Discord, and if that link isn't working, Z, please post one that does. If you join me on our Discord, Cozy Chaos Lounge, because that's what it is. Cozy brings the cozy and I bring the chaos. If you join us on Discord, we'll talk about it, we'll friend up, it'll be great. I don't want to share it with Twitch audience necessarily because I'm afraid who might try and add me. I mean, I get the opportunity to add people or not remove people if I want to. Maybe I'll do it anyway. Maybe I'll do it at another time. Not right now. Technology and learning. Everybody should be involved. Everybody should do it. I think you need to. You need to in the current I lost my train of thought. Here we go. In the current timeline, you kind of need to if you want to keep up with everything that's going on. Yeah. Do I have anything else to say? Is there anything else that's important to say? The ad break is finishing, so thank you for sticking around. I'm at a point in all of this yapping where I'm debating on whether or not I should raid out or find something else interesting to talk about. I depend on technology, disability. I also have technophobia. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff to be scared about. It's very easy to catastrophize things, too. I think that is something that I could speak on. I have the privilege, and I say that sincerely, I have the privilege that I can avoid certain topics and certain activities that are not necessarily being forced on me. I can just simply choose to avoid them altogether. Some people don't have that ability or opportunity. The war in Ukraine is still happening last time I checked. The terrible things that are happening in Palestine, the genocide that is happening there, is still happening. And while I can't necessarily do anything about it, I can still learn about it. I can still... Yeah, exactly. Exactly, Casey. I can still learn about it, and I should learn about it. It is still important things to know, to learn, to share with others so that that awareness continues. Thank you. But admittedly, I haven't been so good about it. I could be better. I want to be better. But also, it can be so incredibly overwhelming. Especially when the people who engage with you make it really hard not to feel offended, triggered, hurt, everything else that can be attached to poor experiences. We all wish that we could avoid toxic things altogether, but even the worst possible things can still teach us lessons. And I have to remember that sometimes. I don't have to engage with them if I can't. I still need to take care of myself. I still have a responsibility to myself. Understand. Good, Casey. Take your meds. Very important. We just already had that conversation not too long ago when my app went off and told me that I needed to take my meds. Pilio app and Finch. Do it. Everybody who can, I strongly recommend it. As I said, kind of starting to get to a point where I'm starting to say the same word 3 times in the same fucking sentence. Good job, me. I am usually more loquacious. Starting to run out of things that I feel are worth talking about right now. Watch is telling me something. Oh, somebody else that I follow just went live. That's nice. That's another thing I'm really grateful for having. I was given a lovely gift. This digital watch. And it has been great to remind me to be active. Even before I had the 2 apps that I had. The phone, it's connected to my phone. That's why I started to say phone. The watch reminds me to get up every hour and move around. Did you also know that you're supposed to be taking eye breaks every 20 minutes that you interact with something backlit or digital? Anything that requires eye focus, you are supposed to take breaks every 20 minutes to look away from you 20 feet ahead for at least 20 seconds. Did you know that? Because I previously did not know that. I think I learned about it at some point in my childhood, but I did not put it into practice. Oh, Cozy gave me another hydrate and a stretch. I did see it that time. Look at me. Okay. You are so insistent that be a stand and stretch. I'm not mad. I made those regimes. It's my own fault. But it's important and I should do it. Big drink of water. Now we're gonna do a big stretch too. Big stone to stretch. I'm gonna try really hard not to care that I am visually able to be seen. I don't want to show my stomach because I'm self-conscious. Ugh. Oh boy. To be honest, I didn't see just stretch. You know, that might be intentional. I'll look to see what my own silly redeems are. Maybe I can encourage somebody else to look at my redeems. Oh, I am, if not anything, your puppet, Twitch. For you to do as you wish with me. I would also like to remind anybody who maybe doesn't already know, if you do feel like helping me out financially, there are ways to do that. There are, of course, bits and such. Like I said, I don't necessarily have the kinds that are super active on the screen, but I can see emotes and shit like that, the big expandy emotes, and subscriptions and gifting subscriptions to people. I'm not trying to shill, so forgive me, but I am subject to financial burdens, and we live in a fucking society. So, you know, if you want to do that, you absolutely can through Twitch. I also have a Ko-fi, ko-fi.com/WaywardBard. You can find me over the internet mostly through as WaywardBard. I'm also on YouTube. You can do all those things. Capitalism! Those are all options. I also use TreatStream. I think that's it. TreatStream. I need to update it and add some more treats to it. But that's the thing you can do. You can buy me dinner. You can buy me a book from Amazon. I don't have an Amazon wish list. I have other things that can be done. I think one of them is Throne. Throne is its own thing. Great. I love interaction, helps me be able to be found. So commenting every so often is a great way to keep me circulating, keep the engagement going. So treat stream, you can buy me dinner, you can buy me a thing. Bits, subs, all that shit. Ko-fi, it's a thing. I think I do have set up through what fucking service that's connected? Something. I can't remember what it is right now. I should probably add it at some point. You can also encourage me to read certain things by, buying me and sending me the book. I don't have the money for a P.O. box right now, but I can also accept digital copies. Stripe, I do have Stripe, and it's also linked to my Ko-fi, but I can definitely use Stripe. My only concern with doing a direct Stripe is that it'll possibly give away my legal name, which, if you know it, no the fuck you don't. If you know where I live, no the fuck you don't. If you know my actual government name, no the fuck you don't. My name is Bard. My pronouns are they, them. I cause mayhem. My back pain. I am here. I am queer. My back pain is moderate to severe. If you can help, great. If you can't help, there are ways to help. Engagement is the biggest one. On Twitch and on YouTube. That's the end of this message. Oh, I have a couple affiliate links. They're in my About tab, but I still can happily talk about them as soon as I can remember what all they are. Give me a second. Go back, please. Thank you. They are bookshop.org, which is an online bookstore that wants to support local independent sellers. One of my favorite things about them is that you can get books that are out of print, or first edition, or autographed in some cases by specific authors. Sometimes even ARC copies. As Cozy says, my legal name is Fuck Around and Find Out. Yes, correct. Bookshop.org is a great provider of wonderful media, because I think they also do other types of media, but they are mostly known for their books. They also work internationally. You can get books in the UK, you can get books in Northern, Southern Europe, Asia, all of that shit. They offer those as options. Then there is Biblio. I flipped it around. Bookshop is, no, excuse me, all of that stuff is applicable to biblio.com. Rare, used, out-of-print books, independent sellers. Bookshop.org, specifically, you can link it so that every purchase you make might be attached specifically to a certain 800 pounds worth. Buy my silence for $500 USD. Bookshop.org makes it so you can link it to a specific bookseller, local bookseller of your choosing, that they can get a portion of your sales. And I will get a portion of your sales if you buy through my affiliate link. Same thing with biblio.org. Or biblio.org or biblio.com. I can't remember which one. Thrift Books is another one. One of the things that I like for them specifically is that they used recycled packaging. A lot of sellers, companies, I'm looking at you, fucking Walmart and Amazon, don't use compostable or recyclable material. Thrift Shop or thriftbooks.com, Thrift Shop, I can't remember which one is, I want to say Thrift Books, for certain Thrift Books. They do that, and that's great, and I love them for that. Lol, no joke, but I actually had to pay real money for the real documentation to change my name legally. Yes, that's a thing we can talk about if anybody's inclined to do that. How that fund, that ability, that practice to be able to go through all of the things to change your legal name. Maybe you hate your government name and you want to change it. Good luck. It's going to cost you money, human money, dollars to do that. If you want to emigrate to another country and leave your country entirely, good luck. It's going to cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. If you don't have a job, you can't do that. When they tell you to go back to your country, guess what that actually fucking means? The amount of money that happens, whether or not it's directly or indirectly, there is money in places there should not be any fucking money. Country boundaries, state boundaries are fucking imaginary. Everything is a fucking social construct too, fuck, all of that shit. But there are good ways to help where you can, to make as much support as possible. I do not endorse corporate merchants at all. I have no desire to do that. I'll tell me all about moving to another country. Tell me. I can talk about it for days, for 24 days actually. Was that something that you talked about during a subathon? I thought about doing a subathon, but I don't think I would get enough eyes genuinely on what I'm able to do right now. Maybe that's worth talking about at some point or another. Maybe I can get a list of specific books that I can read straight for X amount of time. I would have to do one of those types of subathons where I have like a 10-hour window or something like that, because I would still need to go to bed. I would still need to eat. I would still need to do responsibilities in my house. I don't 100% know if I have the capacity to do that currently with my means and my time. But if you're able to help in any way, please do. It would mean a lot to me. But if you're not, engagement helps too. And I love that. I love talking with people because they want to talk with me. I want to encourage people to do that more. I also know that time is money. And some people can't afford to give me their time, and I won't hold it against you. If you decide to engage with my material after I'm done being live, that's still engagement, and I always appreciate that kind of thing. And if you never say a word, but you're just here, that's still engagement, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing time with me. Thank you for interacting with me. Thank you for just existing enough to encourage me to try. I'm so grateful. Truly, from the bottom of my heart, I'm so thankful and grateful for everybody who interacts with me. You make my life worth living. You make my life interesting. You make me excited to try. So what does the future look like for us? If you have book suggestions, I would love to have them, because that is my bread and butter, is talking about books and reading books and sharing books with you guys. I was given the absolute privilege by one of my favorite... No, Casey, please share. I will get back to what I was saying in a second. I'm eager to hear the news. Tell me the news. I want to know. I know it'll take you a second to type it if you don't already have it typed ready to get to trigger. I will give you a second to do that. Ugh! I almost dropped my ebook, my e-reader. Let me talk about that in a sec. You're moving to the United States in 24 days. Holy shit! Casey, that's incredible! Oh my goodness, congratulations! That is so great. I'm so happy for you and your partner. Oh, that's going to be so lovely. I'm sure you're so excited. I would love to hear more about it if you talk about it in a stream. I'll make sure to try and be present for it when I can. I know our time differences are a little difficult to do that in, but I'm so happy to hear about it. And I know that Sai, not _ SAII, for anybody who's interested in checking out their Twitch and participating in their wonderful community, Sai has a Minecraft server that they just opened. And if you don't already know about it, Casey, you should get in touch on the Discord also and get yourself on the whitelist. I know Dingo is already on there. Cozy's obviously on there. Sai is obviously on there. And I'm on there. And hopefully a friend of mine whose name is Tobe, Toab, which is short, I learned, for the one-armed bandit, and has a very long and elaborate story about that is so interesting. Tobe is going to be on it too. Thank you very much. We're actually really excited. I'm extra excited. She's made me like the baby bubble noise, and she giggles, and it's really cute, and I have no idea how the fuck she does it. We are so privileged to know some of these wonderful people, and in some cases, when we are lucky enough to call them partners. I definitely feel that way about my partner, and I feel like recently I haven't told her enough, and that I haven't talked positively enough. In some cases, unintentionally. I guess I'll need to figure out how to get Bedrock crossplay to work. Yeah, we'll figure it out. Babble, baby, babble. We'll figure it out. If it means, maybe I'm able to hold a realm or something, that would be cool. I don't want to put all of the, responsibility on you, because I also know that shit ain't cheap. Oh, I haven't talked about that. Oh, goodness. That's something worth talking about. I've got too many things in my head now. Let me try and prioritize them a little bit. If people have books they want to read, books they want me to read, I encourage you to let me know. I do have a submission. I do have a submission option as a plug-in on my About tab on Twitch. You can always put stuff on there. Whenever possible, I do ask that you try to make it in the... Yeah. I do ask that you try and make it in the public domain. And the best place to look for that is on Gutenberg, Gutenb as in boy, .org. Gutenberg.org. If somebody could please type that in chat, I would appreciate it. Check there. The great thing about Gutenberg is that it is free, entirely free. You can download digital copies in several different formats, and you can put them on e-readers, or you can put them on your phone, or you can read them on your computer if you use the right kind of apps for that. Maybe one of these days I'll actually put a list somewhere for that. And like I said before, there's plenty of stuff that is still readable and applicable that is available in the public domain. Every year they add more things. There's a really great list. I'll have to find it and put it in the Discord channel that is appropriate for it. Of recent things, I think, Nancy Drew, I think, just became available in the public domain, if I remember correctly. Nancy Drew is a great little series, and there's a lot of books, and they're all about the same characters for the most part, so it's very, if you're invested in more than a one-shot book series, great choice. I know a lot of Agatha Christie is also still very accessible and able to be read, and a lot of people love Agatha Christie, even though it's been quite a while since her material has been available for people to read and encouraged to read in the current livelihood, in the current state of the world. Still incredible work. What is the Discord thing you said earlier? Oh, goodness. That it's going to be in a channel. You can put it in a channel. And that Gutenberg.org should be posted in chat so that people can see the link text for it. Gutenberg. Or maybe Burg. Fuck, now I don't even know for sure. Give me a second. I will look. And then I will put it in chat. Give me a minute. Guten. It is Berg. Project Gutenberg. Oh, Minecraft? Yeah. The Minecraft server. Casey. Get in touch with Sai and get yourself added to the whitelist. Fuck. Give me a sec. Copy. Switch over to the stream manager on the phone, which again is a shitty use. It's so not as good as the one that you can do on your computer at the same time, but I can't do those things without shit crashing. I have to be very careful what I do and don't have open. I have been able to test a few games that I can do while doing this at the same time. They have to be a certain quality of game so that it's not making my graphics card and my internet Wi-Fi fight over who gets the priority on the computer. But anyway, if you find specific books that are in the public domain that we can read together, please submit them either on the plugin suggestion box below on my About page or in the Discord under the Books and Bardic Things channel. I'll read pretty much anything, but obviously there are books that will become do not reads if I can't put myself through the work of doing them. And obviously they'll have to be in English because I have not been given the encouragement to learn a language, and I have an old brain, so it's a little hard to learn a language at my current state. It's not impossible. I really need to practice, though. I've been meaning to learn Lithuanian for a couple years now. Granted, Lithuanian is not an easy language to learn, and it is also a gendered language, which you know how I feel about gender. We've already discussed it. There are enough Latinized romantic languages that are difficult to learn, but then you get into Slavic and Eastern European branched languages, which are also really difficult to learn. Lithuanian is one of the oldest languages that is still used today, that is like a separate language tree. My light is super weird because I keep flicking my hand around. I'm sorry about that. My camera is having a heyday. I can only speak and read English. I can barely understand Spanish. I can read it better than I can speak it because I took Spanish in college, in community college, which is part of the 2 years of the 6 that I did. And as I've mentioned before, C's get degrees, and I got straight C's, and I can't necessarily say I came across them honestly. But I needed to finish in order to get on with the rest of my education. My favorite author gave me permission to read his books live, Charles DeLint. I started reading one of his books that was a little bit stronger content than I intended, and I had to put it aside so that I could read it maybe to myself first, or at least read enough of it before I start reading on stream that I can properly mark it for triggers. I started reading one book, and then I switched over to a collection of his short stories, which I did recently read a couple months back now on stream. All of the stuff that I was previously hosting as highlights, Twitch let me know that I can't host more than a certain amount while being just a Twitch affiliate, I guess. So I've moved all of those over to YouTube because as it is right now, YouTube still does not have a limit. Correct me if I'm wrong. You can watch all of my most recent content over there, either posted as a regular, slightly edited video or in the live section, because all of these are now being simultaneously broadcast on both Twitch and YouTube. In fact, if anyone was watching it, Casey, if anybody's watching it on YouTube, I can see comments posted on the YouTube live videos through here because of the fact that they are plugged in together. So while it might not show up in my Twitch chat, it will show up on my screen and I will be able to interact with it. If there is anybody watching on YouTube, hello. I hope you stay. I hope you subscribe. And if you're not following me on YouTube, I would like it if you did, because I got content there too. Eventually, I might even do pre-recorded stuff and then broadcast it live. I'm still trying to figure out the mechanics of that, because I do see people who post pre-recorded stuff. It's usually listed as re-recorded or something like that on YouTube or on Twitch all the time, and it would definitely be a way to capture an audience that I don't currently have access to. But I'm not mentally prepared for that yet. Maybe I'll get there eventually if people enough people are interested, or if I can bring up the desire to do it at all. My spouse recently mentioned being interested in Pride and Prejudice. I have a softness in my heart. Casey, don't start with jelly, jam, preserves. I know you're doing that on purpose because we talked about it in chat that one time. So I'm able to read Charles Dillon books. If you know of any of his books that you would be interested in me reading on stream, I'd be happy to do it. Why is the light fucking Jesus? I would like to still go back and do the ASMR style reading. If you are the kind of person who likes listening to bedtime stories spoken in a soft voice with low lighting, because I can do that with the right kind of preparation. I can do that, and I like doing that, and I would like to go back to doing that. The ASMR community, while I might not 100% understand all of it, is still a great community, and I love everybody involved in that too. So reading some books by an author I love. Try to get... Oh my gosh, chat is suddenly popping. Give me a sec, I have to go back and read what you said. Please stop fucking around, stream manager. Flicky the flicky, come on please. Oh my god. Do I have to close it and reopen it? Give me a second. You don't have to repeat it. Give me a sec. I'm sorry. No, fuck off with the twit. Get out of here. I don't give a shit. Jesus. Where's the stream man? Oh, there it is. Stream manager. Chat. We'll try to get the Minecraft crossplay to work at some point. Maybe tomorrow. Keep an eye on the Minecraft channel and Bard and Cozy stream. Or Discord server. I'm gonna do the thing really quick. Hopefully it's still good. I think it is. There you go. Welcome back from the ads for anybody who was in ads. Oh. Sorry. Somebody is driving through either with really terrible vehicle operating stuff or playing music at a bass level that is... Oh, that was so hard for my brain. Ugh, I hate that. Oh, that was gross. Good. Glad that it still works. I have some audio processing issues. Could also be part of the tism. I can't handle repetitive sounds. Like if a single water drop doesn't have enough differentiation, it makes my teeth itch. Certain like repeating tracks, if there isn't enough differentiation or I start to recognize a pattern, it makes my teeth itch. No, I'm fine. Thank you. It was a very low frequency sound that was really, really obnoxious. It was like, it felt like the walls were vibrating. Not a fan. It's part of the reason that I don't do super well with dogs, because sometimes dog barking is repetitive enough that it makes my teeth itch. Oh my god, my stupid watch. Yes, bass. I don't like bass sounds at all. If a song has really heavy bass, or if somebody's mix is set up that the bass is overly accentuated, or cars drive by with bass like with bass like that, it makes my fucking teeth itch. I'm not a fan. I know some people love the vibration that it gives in their body and shit. Kudos for them. I can't be in the same room as it. I just can't. Fucking lost my train of thought. Books, please. Give me books. I want to read more. My favorite author gave me permission to read books on stream. I have been given permission by the Multi-Emery people to read their book on stream. I just need to get access to it again. I will probably buy it, but I need a little bit more funds to justify the cost. I've been told I can technically count it as a write-off, but I worry that I don't have enough actual credibility as an independent contractor that I could do that, if it would be even worth doing that. It's complicated. I'm not sure I have the energy to do that right now. I could, but I don't want to right now. I've got enough shit on my plate without having to add to it. Plus, I would buy that book just for myself. It doesn't even necessarily need to be business related, but it is definitely one, if I bought a second copy, would be a gift and not just for stream. Because my spouse has no interest in being on the streams with me with the content that I'm doing, except maybe the one act play, but I'll get back to that at some point. I like the bass instrument. I just don't necessarily like the frequency when it gets like that. And I also love upright bass. It's lovely. It's something about broadcasting over electronic speakers, I think, that has a lot to do with that. I think. So books and learning things. I want to learn all the silly fiber art shit. So crochet, knitting, tatting, embroidery, sewing, proper sewing with a machine and by hand. I want to learn all that shit. I really do. I know there are books about that. I could try to have them on screen and or read them or record me reading them while also doing them. I'm figuring that shit out. All of that shit. I'm trying to figure it out. There is, in addition to the ASMR thing, I have a deck that I purchased that is not tarot. I can talk about that if anybody wants to hear about that. As it says in my fucking hell, as it says in my about stuff, I am a pagan animist. Yeah, I hear that, Casey. There are some alternative communities that aren't so bad. You just have to know where to look. I have a deck that I got that is not a tarot deck, is not a deck made by really gross publishing companies. If you know, you know. This one is made specific. I wish I could do it on a Surface, but I don't have a very good Surface on right now because of my shitty desk that I'm using. I would call it a... Oh my god, why am I sucking at folding cards right now? I would call it an activity type desk. There we go. This is a skill. Why was the broom late for the meeting? He overswept. Good bot. One of the skills that I learned from my late grandmother, the one that I grew up around, the one that I reference when I say my grandmother, was how to shuffle cards and to bridge them. So I know how to do that. And I actually kind of want to learn how to do card tricks, because I think that would be fun when I'm doing decks like this. I can do card tricks. Like the one where you can flick it across a certain distance. I think that would be such a fun thing to learn. And I also know it would really be hard to learn. But I also know that it would be fun to experience the learning act with everybody. She taught me how to shuffle cards and helped me learn how to do the bridge and also to play a bunch of different card games. Like old people card games, not like collectible card games like Magic and certain Pokemon style cards. I spent my childhood and some of my teenage years learning all the things I learned how to do card magic, and it was one of my first ever early money making hustles. It was great. I had a couple different people at the place I used to work, the place that I worked at the longest in my whole life, which was a metaphysical bookstore. I'm a pagan. I practice animism and Baltic folk magic. Something I'm still learning, and I love that I'm learning. So I like talking about pagan shit. I've spent maybe 25 years. That's amazing, Casey. I just barely know how to play poker correctly. I love talking about pagan shit. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. I'm happy to talk about it. I'm happy to talk about some of the toxic communities that have come out of it. I'm not a huge fan of interfaith or appropriative paganism. I have a lot of feelings about that. That's why I especially love animism, because there's a form of animism in practically every flavor of religion. I think the biggest problem I have with pagan spirituality is the lack of care. You can appreciate something without appropriating it. I think that's something that people forget that they can do. It's so important to learn the skills and paths that you choose to invest your time in from reputable people who actually come from those cultures, and most importantly, from people who work in open traditions. Oh my goodness. Working at that metaphysical store exposed me to some of the worst kinds of people claiming to be pagan. And even the definition of pagan and where it comes from is in its own way a word with a lot of negative history and connotation. Some people have chosen to use it and reclaim it. Other people have refused to use it. Entire spiritual networks of people, because of the negative connotation that comes with it. Some people don't use the word witch because of that reason. Some people use alternative forms of writing that or referencing to themselves so as to avoid the negative connotation. We could talk about language in that way all day long. I might not necessarily have a degree in linguistics, but I know a lot about the subject, and I'm happy to learn more. So with regard to paganism and working in that metaphysical shop, I got to deal with people who talk about things like angel numbers. I got to be around people who practiced mediumship. I am very skeptical. I am very skeptical of those paths. It has a lot to do with what I personally believe in, what I have been exposed to. That makes me so sad how people around the world are avoiding using the terms which to describe themselves, or even pagan to describe themselves. That make me so sad. Yeah. That's the hard part of language. And specifically some of the actions of the big three that have made those things the way that they are. A lot of Christianity, to be more specific, has done unimaginable damage to native populations, to native ways of practicing, especially in the United States. Our history with the indigenous people of this continent and yes, so you understand, we have robbed entire The quality, okay, I will come back to what I was saying in a second. The lamp that I'm using is actually a full spectrum lamp, and because I keep adjusting myself, there, see, yeah, because of I keep adjusting myself, the auto correction on the camera, just did it again, is trying to compensate for that. I could use the above light. I don't want to. Yep, big time, Casey. I don't want to because it kind of hurts my eyes a little bit, but I'll do it. I'll do it. Give me 1 second to do it. Hopefully it doesn't deeply affect the quality of my screen. I'm gonna change that. There we go. See how it keeps adjusting? I could probably find the settings to fix that, but I'm sure it's going to affect the light quality even when I move around there. I have to be very still. Or I can switch to the built-in camera, which isn't as high a quality. Excuse me. Okay. I can't speak. Sure, it wasn't your eyeballs. Definitely not. I wanted to speak a little bit more about the horrible stuff that has come from Christianity, specifically with regard to indigenous populations, specifically to knowledge of my own country and what we have done to the indigenous population here, which we continue to do. It hasn't stopped. It isn't over. I think that's a really toxic thing that a lot of Americans do, where they're like, oh, that's already happened. We live in a society that's modern, where those things don't happen anymore. Bullshit. People still do that shit. It hasn't gone away, and it is so important for you to call people out on their bullshit, even if they don't want to hear it, even if they will fight you. You can't change anybody's mind who the person themselves don't want to change, but that doesn't change the fact that they now have that memory in the back of their head forever. Forever. That you exchange that with them. It will haunt them for the rest of their lives. They might even bitch and complain about you, how you did this thing, and maybe they do it to the right person who will change their mind and will talk about it in a way that they can accept, because now they're talking to somebody they know and trust. I'm not giving you a permission to go and troll people, but I am giving you permission on kindly educating people, treating people with respect, and also sharing knowledge that they might not previously have had access to. The United States robbed entire tribes of their language, of their practices, of their land, of their people, of their health and mental safety, all of that shit. I'm losing my words because of how much this bothers me. I might not be indigenous myself, but I care so much about everything around me. And the soonest I learned about that, the immediate impact it had on me and my life and my perception of the world, I know, changed forever. And I will always hold these things incredibly dear and close to my heart, and will do everything I can to advocate and facilitate for those people, and to respect those people and all of the strife they have gone through. It is incredible how much harm we as a nation in our history have caused, even though it wasn't me, even though it could have never been any of my ancestors, because my ancestors emigrated to the country much later. That doesn't change the fact that it still happened. That doesn't change the fact that it is still affecting, to this day, those people. So it is important to always be mindful of that shit. Always. Because in a lot of cases, these are people who are still dealing with the after effects of what was done. So people in the pagan community who have adopted Native American practices disgust me. Just because one person from that tradition might have given you permission to do that thing, they do not speak for everyone. Period. If they are a closed practice, It is your responsibility to respect people who say that, who behave that way. You can appreciate their work, and I encourage you to do so. Buy Indigenous art, buy Indigenous crafts, employ or work with Indigenous people, and show them the respect they deserve, as much as you respect and treat people with kindness, regardless of who they are, regardless of how old they are. Just be a kind person, a considerate person. That's all I ask. I don't care to be around people who behave any other way. Simply put. But being in that store and seeing how some people treat Indigenous American faith and practices disgusted me. And it wasn't discouraged by the owner of my store, the store I was employed at. I shouldn't say my store. It wasn't necessarily respected by the people who ran my store. They might have been wonderful people, but they still had to do what they were told, and they didn't necessarily do pushback, because maybe the item they sold very well, because horrible people continued to buy it. I am speaking more specifically of white sage and the act of doing smudging. Again, this is something I could talk about for hours, and I happily would. What upsets me even more is that it's not even something that is necessarily constrained to my continent, to my quote-unquote people. There are people in other countries who have their own Indigenous practices that they could learn about, or themselves are part of an Indigenous population that still exists, who have adopted these practices. And that upsets me deeply as a person who practices paganism, who practices animism, who is mindful of the world and the people in it, to learn that there are people who are practicing something that is closed and aren't even here. Upsets me so much. The fact that there is commercialism around it, and still is commercialism around it, even though these people have told them, please fucking stop. Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. I hate it. I hate it so deeply and passionately, and I will, whenever possible, if I come across it in the wild, if I see it, I won't buy from that store. I will not participate in that, and I will tell everybody that I know. I have fucking bug. Sorry. I have to tell everybody I know not to participate in that business, to not give them their money, because that's apparently the only way we can show value in a capitalist society. So, be mindful of that shit. Don't do that. If you are, and one of the things about sage, specifically white sage, and also sweetgrass, is that these are considered medicine by the indigenous population of America. In a lot of cases, these wild plants are gifted to people by that population. And these people will tell you how to use it correctly, how to use it positively, or might even invite you into their spaces so that they can show you how it's done, so that you can participate with them. But it is a privilege. It is a privilege, and it is not something you should be just adopting because you found a print off at a fucking metaphysical store that tells you how to use it and encourages you to buy it from a fucking commercial product that shouldn't exist. Plain and simple. And it bothers me that the store that I worked at did it. And it bothered me that I had to work there because I needed money to survive. And it was one of the only places that would consider hiring me because of the knowledge that I previously learned and shared to show that I was employable by this place, and continue to work there even after I learned to do this. It was despicable. I fucking hated it. And I tried to do pushback, and I was told, no, we have to do it this way because that's what the owner wants, and the owner gets what the owner wants because it's their store. And I did not spend my money there unless I was given a gift certificate by my boss as a gift at a Christmas dinner, which don't even get me started on that. Angel numbers, also bullshit. Good. A plus, my dear. Wasn't a big thing with that. Wasn't a huge appreciator of white people shamanism, plastic shamanism, if you will. There are a lot of cultures that practice shamanism, but the idea that white modern Westerners try and portray when it comes to shamanism is, again, pretty fucking despicable. Not a fan of that either. Folk practices that came out of chattel slavery, of the African descendants that live in this country, practices that don't belong to white people. Even if they're from Louisiana, even if they grew up there around other people who did it, they should not be practicing that. No, I don't support that. If you're gonna learn about it, sure, learn about it, educate yourself, but you should not be practicing something that does not belong to you, that you have not been invited to, that is not open to practice. Just don't fucking do it. It is a human decency thing. And if you see other people doing it, fucking bring it to their attention and don't let them act like it's not a big deal. Just because it's not a big deal to them doesn't mean it's not a big deal at all. Excuse me. I'm sorry I got so mad, but I'm not. I'm sorry if me being mad stressed you out, but I'm not. You could have left any time. You choose to be here too. So, for instance, hoodoo, the practice, the North American practice that has traditions, that has ancestral roots in practices that are not for white people. We sold things like that. We sold angel number bullshit. I come back to angel numbers because it is such a repeated thing I see in white people culture by people who claim to be Christian. Christianity and what it has done to damage the world is despicable. And what's worse is they act like it wasn't even a big deal. That it was the right given by their God. That they should behave that way. That they should proselytize. That they should have as many babies as they can so that they can continue to spread the message. And then punishing their own people for not participating in laws that are so fucking archaic that people are still peddling like they are still applicable today. There's a reason I left Christianity, and it was because I became painfully aware of that at a very young age and could not prescribe to it anymore. And some of my family didn't necessarily care for that. And some of my people continued to push that on me, even though I repeatedly told them, please do not do that. Please respect me and my boundaries. There's a reason I don't talk to those people anymore. It is one of many reasons. I need to turn my do not disturb back on for at least one more hour. There we go. Huzzah. All of this came because I didn't want to deal with tarot cards. That was another thing that we sold. It was a hot ticket item. It was enough of a hot ticket item that we had a whole display on it at the front of the store. That we employed tarot readers at the store. We taught tarot reading classes. We provided certificates of finishing those classes and having learned X, Y, and Z style. tarot as a divination practice does not belong to white people. I have a similar story, but it's not for Twitch. But the bottom line was I also had to remove Christianity from my life very young age. I understand. Without you even giving me enough information to understand, I'm pretty sure I know. And I am so sorry that had happened to you, to hear that happen to you, to know that happened to you. I am so sorry you had to experience that. And I see you, and I hold space for you, and I appreciate you sharing even the smallest amount of information about that, and I hope you see my sincerity and hear it. And oh my God. Oh. I am so glad that you are still here. And I am so glad that you are in a safer place. And I am so glad that you've been able to overcome some of that enough to keep choosing to be here. I honor that in you. And that is another thing about Christianity that I do not condone or tolerate. The idea that choosing not to be here is demonized, when in a lot of cases, choosing not to be here is mental health related. And as a society, we are so disrespectful and unkind to people with mental health problems. That is its own couple hours of conversation. I unfortunately lost a family member to them choosing not to be here. And even though I wasn't intimately familiar with this family member and had very minimal interaction with their life, even though I didn't consider them a close enough family member that I interacted with them, and I admit that was partly my own fault and my own ignorance. But when I learned that they chose not to be here, it was devastating to me. They were at the end of their rope. They were not given the consideration and the kindness that they deserved by somebody who they believed would always be there to support them. And because they felt so alone and so hurt, and they were untreated and uncared for, they chose not to be here anymore. And not only that, but they chose not to be there anymore in front of someone, a pair of someones, who were deeply impacted and affected by that choice. And even so, I do not demonize them. I don't. I don't demonize anybody who does that. I really truly don't, and I'm not trying to encourage anyone to do that. I'm really truly not. But I understand why somebody might. And I have definitely been in situations where I have been that low. And I understand the impact of that. And I've also had to give myself reasons to keep going. Oh, I hope that Twitch didn't just turn me off. Now I need to check. It says I'm still live. Okay. It looks like I am. That's good. Good. Thank you guys for letting me know. That's something that I'm afraid of, because that's how much of a derisive subject matter that everyone talks about like it doesn't exist. And it deserves to be talked about. It does. Because it's about taking care of each other and wanting to take care of each other. And it's so fucking important. It's so fucking important that we take better care of each other. Regardless of who you are, where you are, it's even important to try and care for these people who are so fucking despicable. We don't have to engage with them. We don't have to encourage them. We don't have to do any of that. And you could even argue that their loss might be better for everyone. But the truth of the matter is, grief is still something that people will experience regardless of whether or not that person was a positive influence in their lives. A child who might not understand what's happening or going on, but still cares deeply for that person, will experience incredible grief and sadness at their loss. And that person deserves to be treated with kindness and consideration and respect. The fact that this person may have caused incredible harm, the people who were affected by that harm still deserve kindness and consideration and respect, and to be honored and taken care of by the community. It is so, so, so important. Thank you so much for coming in, Fuzzy. It's so nice to see you. I know it's been a minute, but I appreciate you being here. I truly do. I'm sorry it got a little heavy. I don't know whether you came late or not, but either way, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for engaging. All of those things are really important. So, the fact that I worked at a store that was like that sometimes capitalized on that. Some of these mediums that were at the store that I worked at capitalized on people's grief and sadness and wanting to connect with people who had passed. And I got to watch that. And by working there, I felt like I was part of the problem. But there is no such thing as ethics in capitalism. And I have to remind myself that pretty regularly. Ethical consumption. No ethical consumption in capitalism. If it wasn't for the fact that capitalism is in place, I wouldn't have to do that. If we could collectively agree that it was awful and did what we needed to do to change it, it would be for the betterment of mankind. But there's too many people who are benefiting from it with enough power that gets stopped. And that's awful. It's tragic. It's horrible. So the only way we can actually do anything about it ourselves is to enact that in our day-to-day with the people that we choose to be around, to continue to encourage consideration and kindness, to encourage that spreads. And maybe someday, way after most of us are gone, if we are lucky to observe it happen in our lifetimes, that will be so amazing. But I also know and believe that if it does happen after I'm gone, that hopefully maybe someday it will no longer be an issue. Be that a comet or people choosing collectively to end that style of living. And I hope that there's a part of me that wants that to be part of my legacy, something that continues after I'm gone. And I have to also remind myself that comes from a place of pride. And even though I don't necessarily prescribe to the religious belief that is something that should either be encouraged or discouraged, it is still something that I acknowledge in myself, and I have to remind myself that the most important thing I can do is just to do well now and hope for the best. So that's what I try to do. That is the creed that I try to promote, and to live. Education is important. Discussion is important. Sharing is important. Choosing to be here is so important. I'm so grateful that all of you choose to be here and all of you choose to continue to learn and grow and spread that knowledge. That is the growth I love to see. And even now, going on 3 hours, I'm almost at what I would normally consider time to go. I started at the beginning of this 3 hours with so much fear and anxiety because I was afraid of coming back after so much silence, after being gone for so long, and worrying that people either wouldn't care or weren't invested in the continuation of my story, of my life. I was so afraid that I was going to be talking into the void. And I am reminded as I continue to go forward that just because nobody may be listening, it doesn't mean that I can't hear my own self, and to remind myself what is important and what I want to do and be in my lifetime. So just the reminder to myself has been a great motivator to keep talking. I should have taken some vocal breaks at least once or twice. And I worry that I'm going to feel this tomorrow, especially considering that I had therapy today with my spouse. Very important therapy, couples therapy. I'll talk about that a little bit, and then maybe I'll find somebody for us to raid into. Like I had mentioned way earlier in the stream, life circumstances and stress overall has made my marriage very difficult. Very, very difficult. It is a cumulative problem. Everything continued to pile on until it came to a point where everything we did was an argument. Even the very basic things that previously had not been an argument became an argument. I take responsibility for my part in it. Whether or not I agree is irrelevant. I caused harm. They caused harm. We were continuing to harm each other. And we both agreed that we needed to stop. And we both agreed that we needed to learn together how to be better together, how to be better separately, how to continue going forward with each other, to get over the struggle, to reclaim our teamwork. I think most relationships people have, whether or not they're romantic or sexual or anything like that, are important to do those things, to remember why, to come back to it and encourage it when we can, when it needs to be done, to hold on to those connections. We went to therapy. This was our first therapy session as a couple. We both have our own individual therapists. Admittedly, I have been more consistent and for longer than my spouse has had the privilege of being able to do. Part of that has to come from the fact that we came from a very Republican state. My spouse grew up there and didn't have the ability to leave it and had to work with what they had. And unfortunately, because of their income bracket, because of the designation they were given, their choices were very minimal. They didn't have a lot of choices. They also did not have consistent choices because in a lot of cases, that bracket was one people used as a launch pad to go on to other better opportunities. Yeah, I feel that a lot, Fuzzy. I'm so sorry that you have to struggle through that. And I hope you have a network of people who help you choose to continue to go even when it doesn't feel like you should. So my spouse, the whole beginning of our relationship, sorry about the bump. My spouse, during the whole beginning of our relationship, had been struggling to get consistent care, to get consistent treatment, to get consistent diagnoses, and wasn't able to get the care they deserved and needed. I'm very fortunate now that we are in a better place in that regard. that we have been able to get the treatment that we need and deserve, the care that we need and deserve, and hopefully the diagnoses that we need and deserve. Whether or not the country of my current living will acknowledge, respect, and treat that with consideration is a different story. But at least the part that we can control, we are able to control and are able to get those services. So my spouse has been in therapy for enough months that she felt comfortable going to therapy with me. We had some struggles with that too. There were some very specific things that we needed from a therapist to feel safe and comfortable. One of the biggest hurdles was getting a therapist that presented female. My spouse specifically needed that because in her experience, every male provider she had received, not just mental health, but also physical health, had brought patriarchy and toxic masculinity into service. And because she previously presented male, she was expected to participate and accept those things. So she did not want to have a male presenting practitioner to be our therapist. It was also super helpful if that person providing care, if female presenting, was also gender affirming, was also religiously understanding. We didn't want a Christian or Islamic or Jewish practitioner. It can be kind of unavoidable. And we really needed that provider to not try and push and peddle belief systems that did not work for or apply to either of us. So those two things specifically. Gender affirming was also a big one. Because we're queer. Queer people who do not present in a patriarchal way. Even before I came out non-binary, before I came home to being agender, I was always, for as long as I can remember, gender nonconforming. I did not prescribe to traditional gender roles, and what the weight of those things are, I deeply resented the fact that so much of the career fields come with this double standard. It is perfectly acceptable, for instance, for the mom to do all of the home cooking, but if you go into professional cooking as a chef, the workforce is dominated by male presenting people, and that is considered acceptable and encouraged. Women are not given the same privileges that men are given. That's unfortunate. So we needed a provider who was able to do all three of those things. Be gender affirming, be queer affirming, be spiritually neutral at the very minimum, and preferably not male presenting. That is a really hard list to work in, even in the most progressive places, because then there are people with personal business practices that might not necessarily reflect any of those things in a positive way. I had one attempt to get a therapist that ticked literally all of those boxes. I was actually really excited to potentially work with them because of the fact that they ticked all of these boxes. Unfortunately, this therapist tried to push misinformation on me and to pretty much refuse to work with the insurance group that I qualify for, that I have to take, because it is literally the only one that is offered to me, that I have the privilege of taking because I am educated enough to know how to get this work, that I am physically capable enough, barely, to go and get this work either by phone or in person. This is the insurance that I have, that I am lucky to have for as long as they consider it something they are willing to give me. She refused to take this insurance even though she was listed as a provider on this insurance. She wanted my money directly from my pocket to her pocket, and that was the only way she was willing to service me. She was even willing to work on a sliding scale with me. $15 a session. Some people would consider that reasonable, even affordable. Some people would still do that, even if that's literally $15 that they could use for any other thing that they desperately need just to survive the next day. My spouse was willing for us to potentially use that, to do that, for that $15 every session, because we need couples therapy. It isn't just that we want it, we need it. But I refused. Because ethically, what she was doing was wrong. She tried to push information on me to say that so many insurances wouldn't even accept somebody. Yeah, it seems cheap. I can't afford to pay for the place we live. I make like $300 every 2 weeks. It's okay, Casey. You can always come back and watch the stuff later if you feel like, and you have the ability to skip around. That's lucky. I could not. Yeah. Sometimes sliding scale is willing to do that because anything is better than zero. That was another thing I wasn't super keen on. While I appreciate the idea of sliding scale, I don't appreciate what it stands for necessarily, especially when some people, what we talking about, therapy and the cost of therapy and insurance and all of the things attached therein. Specifically a therapist who ticked all of our boxes, being queer, being gender affirming, being religiously and spiritually neutral, and being feminine presenting rather than masculine presenting, because patriarchy is fucking bullshit. Yeah. All of that shit. And she ticked all those boxes, and then she turned out to be a capitalist shill. So we chose not to go with her. Yeah, that's a big... That Sai says, tried therapy, it was meh, but also wasn't really open to it, so yeah. I know a few people who fit in that category, and I am of the mind that therapy is for everyone. Whether or not you feel like you need it, I think everybody can benefit from it, even if it's only a couple sessions, or even if it's a self-help book by a reputable person and not just some fucking TikTok writer who uses fucking ChatGPT to write it. So we got a different therapist. Yeah. That's another thing that comes with free therapy. People who don't necessarily, or maybe a better way to put it would be people who shouldn't be providing therapy to begin with just because it's free. And in some cases, having to wait way fucking longer than is necessary for that kind of treatment. Yeah, exactly. Anyway, I tried to get another therapist. Unfortunately, I was given the wrong information by the scheduler that the therapist was in fact a couples therapist, when it turned out they were a therapist who worked specifically with parents of children who needed therapy, not necessarily for the relationship, but more for the fact that the parents were maybe having a hard time and needed to work with a therapist in order to be better parents and or care for the child who was getting therapy, rather than marital therapy, couples therapy, like relationship therapy. therapy for two people simultaneously over the same topics that weren't married, or excuse me, that weren't parents, because my spouse has children from another marriage, and even if they didn't, we're still two people in a relationship who needed to get our shit figured out. So the person I tried to get after that wasn't available. Another person in that same providing service was available, but they weren't easily accessible with our current travel restrictions, we'll call it that. So I got recommended, not referred, like my spouse has said it before. We were recommended by my therapist, who I love and trust and respect and believe in, to try a therapist at the service provider that my spouse is currently getting for everything else that they need, that they previously did not have access to because they didn't A, know they existed, and B, did not have an actual referral to versus a recommendation. We were recommended a specific therapist at this providing service establishment. As it turned out, that person didn't have availability, at least not for a couple of months. But they had done their research at this facility to recommend another therapist that did have availability, that they more or less were supervisors over. Like, they read all of their stuff and make sure to check their work because this person is recently graduated. That's a thing that a lot of new therapists out of the school start doing, is they get something like oversee/mentorship from another well-practiced, what's the word I'm looking for? Seasoned? Maybe a seasoned long-time practitioner of therapy and so on and so forth. This person is masculine presenting. Anxiety number 1 from my spouse. Less so from me, but not zero. However, they were gender affirming. They were queer. They were spiritually neutral. 3 out of 4 ain't bad. That's at least 75%, which is a passing grade. So we went and we had our session today, and I would say it was very productive. I'm going to take a pause to read Casey's words. I'm just going to say it during my teenage years, was in mental hospitals for a long time. This involved therapy, obviously. That's my only input. I don't want to go any further than that, but there's a lot, and that you're listening. Oh boy, I can talk about that in my own personal experiences in a second. Part of the reason I even brought any of this stuff up was because I was saying that I had done an hour of that work, although not a constant hour, more like a little bit here, a little bit there over the course of the hour. So, but it's adding up. I should probably be taking vocal breaks, but at this point, it's already been this long. I'll take my vocal break after. Which means I'm not going to join any VC chat if we're all going to play online or whatever. I'm going to not, but I will text. I will be involved in chat, etc. Anyway. Oops. Sorry for the noise. Hang on, I just want to check that there haven't been any redeems. Looks like we're good. Good. The fact that we both have therapists and have been working with those therapists. Hello there. I think you're new. Thank you for joining us. We're talking about therapy. If you aren't new, thank you for joining me anyway, because obviously it's been a fucking minute. It was important that we both get therapy. Oh, gross! I hope you don't mean literally. It was important that we both have therapy. It was important that my spouse felt comfortable enough for us to start therapy together. Oh, geez, that's disgusting. Oh my fucking god. I'm not I'm not going to talk on that. I'm sorry. um, Jesus Christ. I say, not believing in the deity, spiritual. I would request just at this point not to further talk about it, just because there's still really important stuff to talk about. We're supposed to be talking about how mental health care is important and that everybody needs it and everybody should use it. No, not here, dummy. Thank you. Okay, so it's something, the couples therapy is something that I've been trying to get us into for a while, but we weren't able to do until we came here because all of the therapy in the state that we were previously in, which was Republican and repugnant, to put it plainly, so we were able to finally do it. Shh. We were finally able to do it. And it feels like, unfortunately, and also fortunately, that this was the right time. So I'm glad that we went. I'm glad that we will continue to go. I'm glad that we're both in a place where we can. I'm glad that Stop it! I'm going to put you on time out. Naughty, naughty. I'll give you a few minutes. Goodness gracious. Okay. I understand also that there are bad actors, let's call them. People who really should not be providing the service. People who are giving wrong information, as I mentioned before. People who are maybe doing it for the wrong reasons. People who are actually really horrible people who may do things like piss on their sleeping clients or, go as far as to share privileged information that they have no right doing by doing things like going against HIPAA, which is very, very important, at least in the United States of America. I don't know about anywhere else. All of those things. And seriously, we're fortunate to have those people, and it's unfortunate that people have had horrible experiences. I know that there are some spiritual leaders, like church type leaders, who say, oh, we're counselors for marriage and stuff like that, who have literally no degree, who have not a single leg to stand on, and should not be giving anything like that, any sort of advice to people who desperately need that kind of care. Thank you for hanging around for the ads. I appreciate you. We're talking about how church pastors and the like will sometimes talk about being able to provide, counseling services, who have no fucking business doing that. I'm not speaking from personal experience or exposure at all. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm taking you off of timeout now, Yell. Be good. People who have had that kind of experience, I feel so sincerely badly for. Be good. I'm serious. Be good. I'm not saying that people who are not therapists can't give good advice. I'm not a therapist. I would like to believe that I give good advice. I also know that because I'm not a therapist, that a lot of my information is unverified, and it is your job to be responsible adults. I'm doing. Be responsible adults, make good choices. That's been the theme of this entire stream. Be good. Make good choices. Always be willing to try. Always be willing to be considerate and kind to others. Don't be a dick. I forgot to come back to my cards, because that was the whole thing I was going to talk about. I don't do tarot cards. I don't do tarot cards. I don't do angel cards. I don't really like oracle cards necessarily, unless they are from an open source or whatever. I think the aspirational, thank you. I think that aspirational cards and stuff like that, affirmation type cards, are great. I also know that they can be very poorly designed. I mean, in terms of like what they actually are for. Because toxic positivity is also something that exists. How terrible is that? I hate this timeline sometimes. So the cards that I have are activity type cards. And I do have a redeem for them. If you feel inclined to participate in that, well, that's because you were being naughty, so don't do that. I understand it upsets you. That's okay. We can sometimes sit in hard emotions. Okay, so if anybody is interested in doing a redeem, I'm happy to provide them one. I know, but you did not listen to me when I asked you to stop. I will in fact give you a kindness right now. I will give you an activity card, y'all. Give me a second to shuffle. I know I already shuffled like 2 or 3 times already, but I'm gonna do it again just because it's fun and soothing to me, and I'm impressed that I can even do it. Thank you for apologizing. I accept your apology. Continue to be good, please. Yeah. I'm going to give you a card. Oh, I shouldn't show that side to you. Please forgive me. I'm going to give you a card. Obviously, you can't choose one directly, so I'm going to choose one for you. These cards are called side quest cards. I will link to them in the Discord if anybody feels inclined to check them out. I think you should. They're made by an independent seller, and I love their products. That's why I bought them. That's why I continue to share them with other people. This is your side quest, Yell. Excuse me, not yell. Your side quest. I will read it out loud as well. For anybody who's listening, come on, please focus. Forgive me. There we go. Experience an adventure through a movie, book, show, or game. The quote attached to it is, "That's why they call it the jungle, sweetheart," by Indiana Jones. So, your side quest, your activity, it is a great noise, isn't it? Is to experience an adventure through a movie, book, show, or game. Should you feel inclined to share your experience, we have a side quest channel in the Discord. Casey, I know you didn't make a redemption, but I'm still going to do one for you because it's fun. Because the sound is nice. Let me do that one more time. And the air is a little hard, I'm not going to lie. All right, Casey. Princess Casey, 91. Your card, after I make the machine do the thing so it's not fuzzy. Focus. My terrible hands, forgive me. Focus. Make a use in a case of a bad day kit for yourself or someone else. That is your side quest. The quote on the card: "Nature always has a way to balance itself. The only question is, what part will we play?" I'm going to butcher this pronunciation, but the quote is by Dr. Serizawa. I especially love the art on these cards. It is so good. Once again, not made by AI, made by a human person. Once again, the side quest is make a use in case of a bad day kit for yourself or someone else. Whatever that means to you, please do it. Yes, the idea, the emergency. Saint Base. Side worst. Shut up. Come on. Be nice. Don't do the thing. I will put you in timeout again. Stop it. If that is a dupe account and you're just being a brat, congratulations on being a fantastic actor. Yeah, that's possible. Hopefully they continue to be good, and if not, I will do what must be done. Good, I hope not. Maybe they're a friend, in which case that is a very, very specific handle for a friend to have. I don't know. I'm pretty sure Saint Benzo, not Bezos, but Saint Benzo. I'm pretty sure you are a new person who's joined in. I appreciate you. Oh my god, am I not muted on my computer? Good gracious, I apologize for that. I would like to give you a card. As I mentioned before, in case you didn't hear, these are considered redemptions. I don't normally do these, but I thought it would be a nice activity to do before we raid out and to encourage people in the future to do redeems. So St. Bezos, one more time, one more shuffle before I pick a card for you. Thank you so much for coming by. Okie doke. Here we go. I like this one. Terrible close up of my hand. There we go. Your side quest. Create a character. Draw yourself. Determine your stats and write an epic backstory about your life. The quote attached: a delayed game is eventually good, but a rushed game is forever bad. Quoted by Shigeru Miyamoto. Good. Yes, I also love the shuffling sound. It is one of the sounds that I have added to my list of redeems in the ASMR sense. I'm trying to build an ASMR kit that I can use to make better options for people. As it is right now, my kit is kind of limited. You're very welcome. And if you decide to join our Discord server, !Discord, there is a channel specifically to share redeem stories called Side Quests. And you can always make redemptions. It doesn't matter. Every single stream that is available, be it ASMR or not, I do offer that as a redeem. I like these cards because they are fun, because they are created by a independent company and shipped by an independent company. And they're beautiful cards, and they're not attached to anything that could be appropriated by other bad actors. And I love to share them. There's a couple different decks that they offer. The one I got is specifically a mixed deck. Oh my god, I hate that my watch keeps attaching itself to the threads in my shirt. Jesus Christ. Welcome, thank you for joining the server, Benzo. They have 3 different decks, and they are over different topics. I got the combined one because I was interested in the combined one. It sounded really fun. It had a little bit of everything, and I appreciated that. Excuse me for talking so fast and for almost burping. I think I have a lot of acid in my stomach right now. Brain, catch up. Or mouth, catch up with brain, please. Thank you. They have a different name. Welcome into Y'all Nuts. They have a different name for that particular deck right now. but I will absolutely link to them. I'm not sponsored by them either. I just really love their products. They're great. So yeah, I think, even though I'm sorry I have to share this, but my wife just got up in the middle of the night to just text me and tell me that she loves me, send me kisses, and I'm pretty sure she went straight back to bed because I replied and still nothing. I love that for you. And I love that you shared it because I feel warm and fuzzy having read it. I think I'm going to find us somebody to rate into. It's going to take me a second because I'm not 100% sure any of the people that I normally rate into are available right now. But I will be happy to look. Bear with me as I do that. Talk amongst yourselves. Be good. Let me see. Oh, Sexy Sloth is streaming. Sexy Sloth is another reader, but she also does some games too. There's a couple different people I can see that are doing some good stuff. I like to encourage my audience to check out people they might not normally check out. Now I just have to pick who looks good. I think I'm going to send everybody to Tori. I love Tori. She's part of Fada Lay's community of characters, but she also produces her own content. So I think I'm going to do that. Bear with me. I don't have any sort of special message that I use when I do raids. I'd like to develop one, but in that way, I have something of a terrible creativity. Let's go that. Well, thank you so much for popping in, Benzo, and I look forward to seeing you in the future. Thank you again for the follow and joining the community. I appreciate you. I hope you had a great experience and that you'll come back soon. For the rest of you, I would love it, even if for a minute you join me in raiding with Tori. Tell her I sent you. Be good. We are nothing if not good people. I hope to see you again soon. Take care. And see you next time. Oh, that mouse is not working. Remember to go outside, drink water, take your meds, have a snack, have a stretch, and if you have any furry, scaly, or feathery friends, make sure to give them a hug and a kiss and a little bit of love from me. And I will see you soon. Take care.